Little lunch break. Wait, is our stream going? Does anybody know? Somebody said something about our stream. What's up with Bob's stream? I think we're here. I think we're on.
I think you're there.
I don't know. We should be. Let me see.
It's showing on my end.
Let's see. We're yeah, I think so. I've only got 9 people.
They're saying it's not live.
What?
They're saying it's not live.
It's not live. So it like on my end, it's saying I'm live.
It is now. They're saying someone said it is now. Let me.
Okay.
Oh, it is now. You're live now. All right, we're good.
That must have been like a StreamYard glitch or some shit.
Could be.
So Jay, during our little lunch break, I was a little late getting back. I had to watch. Allison just was not pausing it, and I had to see if Clay was going to say yes to AD in Love Is Blind season 6. I mean, dude, I was like, I had very distinct thoughts about Clay. If y'all haven't watched Love Is Blind season 6 yet, like going in, I'm like, this dude's a player. No fucking way. And by the end, man, I just loved them as a couple, and I really was rooting for that one to go. And I'm not going to give it a spoiler, so
you gotta tell me what they look like. Who's Clay and AD? I don't remember.
So AD is super cute, former New England Patriot cheerleader.
Oh yes, okay, yeah. Yes. All right, yeah. I know the answer.
Clay's good looking, like
yeah,
played basketball at South Carolina, fucking like beautiful couple, and he's young. You could tell he's like, I mean, that dude's not having a problem getting women, but she's like phenomenal. Like
she was so cool. She was cool.
Dude, yeah. She's an amazing woman. I'm like, dude, that's your girl, man. That's going to be the one. That's going to be the one who's going to, be your partner. Because that's what you need in marriage, man. You need a partner, man. You got to be a team. That's it. It's the only way this shit works.
Facts.
That's facts.
His did you watch? His dad was an interesting fellow. Did you see when his dad was talking to him before
yeah.
They go? That was like, it was like all about him, the dad. He was like, me. Shannon pointed this out when the dad just kept talking about like the dad's like stuff. And I'm like, why is he just talking about himself?
But that had such an impact on Clay. Like if you were listening to the conversations, he was always hearkening back to like how my dad cheated on my mom, like in year 7 or there, like, so that shit, like, and that was like a thing for him, and now you know why, when like you saw the conversation with him and his father's obviously a narcissistic type dude, and that kind of like obviously had a big impact on him, in terms of him being like, I don't know if I'm ready. That's a crazy experiment though, man. It's been a pretty good season though, man.
Did you see that one dude? I tweeted this out. I retweeted someone. That one dude, I think his name is Jeremy, right? With the
yes,
he was like had a girlfriend when he went on the show, or he was engaged. Like there's a picture of him, a woman, and like a child, and this woman's like, well, I wish they would vet these people, and they're like, well, how do you know? Where did you get this pictures from? She's like, I'm the woman's mom.
Oh my God. I didn't hear that, dude. I just saw how he blew up his engagement.
Oh yeah, that was a whole nother story.
And there's like jet skiing, like
with the other girl,
like at the party, like that dude's not a good guy.
No,
not a good guy. I was not rooting for that guy. Like there was certain, and like the Jimmy guy, man, Jimmy was the one who had the beautiful single mom.
Oh yes.
And he ended up picking the other gal who was
the other gal who said the whole idea of the show is don't let the other person know what you look like. And she's like, I look like
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox, but she didn't.
She did not look like Megan Fox, dude.
No.
Allison's like, who's Megan Fox? I'm like, here. I'm like, because when she said that, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I'm like, and I hand the phone over to Alice. She's like, well, maybe. I'm like, no, she doesn't look anything like Megan Fox. There's a blonde actress who's probably like 40, early 50s. I cannot for the life of me remember what sitcom she was on that looks exactly like that chick. and like it was driving me nuts. I thought it was designing women. I'm like, no, wasn't that? It's like facially, she's got it's like a completely different thing. But her face is like doppelganger, like complete doppelganger.
Well, it ain't Megan Fox.
No, yeah, I'm just killing time here, folks. We're not missing anything. I mean, I think Megan Fox is basically everybody's crush, except like I heard she's like a giant turd, like a turd. Right? Yeah, I heard she's extremely hard to work with on the set.
Well, she also, did you know this, Bob, about her? Her thumbs look like her toes. Did you know that? Not even making that up. That's like a legitimate thing.
Wait, what? She what?
Her thumbs look kind of like toes. That's like a real fact, folks. Please tell me I'm not crazy, folks.
That's amazing.
Look like toes. Someone please back me up in the chat. Toe thumbs. Yes, thank you.
Thumbs. The toe thumbs.
Yeah.
What can we call those? Those?
I think it's like some sort of condition, but
you're saying she has those, is what you're saying to me.
And the only reason I bring it up is because I saw someone like say, give her shit about it, and then someone else, of course, on Twitter, where there's and someone's like, yeah, you're gonna get rid of her because her thumbs look a little weird, like because the person's like, oh, she's disgusting, and they're like, are you kidding me?
I mean, my big thumbs, or I like those. Why you gotta try to one up me, Mandy, with thumbs? It's pretty good though. She's so good. Yeah, those. See, Morgan knows. Yeah. So my big toe looks like Fred Flintstone's thumb, like his fingers. Like I've been saying that for years. Like my big toe looks exactly like Fred Flintstone's like thumb or finger. Like all his fingers look the same. They're just meaty, and I think he's only got 3 of them, maybe 4. I think he's got 4. He's one shy. All right, so who do we think's coming up next? So we've had
everyone in the meeting, right? We've had everyone who was at that meeting. What about the teacher who saw it first? Does she get called? The one who like initially saw the test or saw the videos?
Well, let me ask you, Friday, do you feel like they established I mean, you think we're done with like the school shooting portion?
Yes, because I think so. They had this witness who was absolutely amazing. She was, I think, a vice principal. And basically, they just kept asking her, like, what is the protocol? And basically, she's like, the protocol is you're supposed to, like, once you find out what's going on, you go and lock yourself in. And they just kept asking, well, did you lock yourself in? She's like, no, I went and checked on this. Like, this woman was like a hero. Like, she just kept moving towards the shots. She sees Ethan and she like talks to him and he sees her. And then and she's telling the people on the so like a walkie-talkie, but she went over the details. They're not allowed to go in detail about it, but I think based on her and the first witness, I don't think they have to show anymore. Could be wrong, but
yeah, I mean, what do you think? You think Crumbley's going to testify?
I mean, if
I don't know. I mean, if he does, like, she did not help herself when she testified, and it was like that one question: would you have done anything differently? And she's like, no. Like, which it requires a deeper analysis. Like, that's a very different. Like, Shannon should never have asked her that question. Like, the state could have, because they talked about that. Because there's like that question is like a double-edged sword. Because if you say yes, I would have done something differently, that means that you acknowledge that you knew that there were issues. You know what I mean? Whereas if you're saying no, but in retrospect, of course you have to say, of course I would do something differently. Or it's like an admission that she just wasn't paying attention. You know what I mean? It was like a very tricky question.
Well, I'll tell you this. If his defense attorney doesn't think that she'll be like, did you see what happened with your wife? Like, shut your face.
Right.
Don't go up there,
Well, exactly. So I think who we'll probably see is whoever sold him the gun. I think we got to get that into evidence.
No, we got that in there. We got that in there on
that's already done too?
Yeah, that was done last week. Yep.
Yeah, like you said, this thing's gonna be done Wednesday. I mean, they're probably getting pretty close. Yeah, so you can see, folks, like there's some different evidence in this case, but they've really streamlined it from Jennifer's case. They probably realized that we didn't need nearly as much of the school shooting logistics as we did with so Diz. Bob, there will be 2 witnesses that weren't in Jennifer's trial. A student, oh boy, and the previous owner of the gun to say it was never used. How is that relevant?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Why would they need to?
What is the relevance of that? That's weird. The student's going to be heartbreaking already. I'm already crying, Jay. Jay, I'm crying.
I struggled during that woman. Special Agent Brett Brandon, it looked like.
Yeah, Christy, there was definitely a lot of affair shit with a lot of horses and affairs with Jennifer.
Brett Brandon, BRETTBRANDON.
Good afternoon.
Boy, this guy looks like a Fed, huh?
Special Agent.
A young one.
Yeah.
Can you tell the jury what role you're playing here today and during this trial?
One of the officers in charge of this case.
Okay, and what does that mean?
That the lock for the gun was never used. There we go.
To usher this investigation through the prosecution.
Okay. This Lieutenant Willis?
Yes.
Okay. He's normally sitting right here.
Hey, Lisa.
Officer in charge?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what your occupation is?
Yes, I'm a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. It's commonly referred to as just ATF.
And what does the ATF do?
The ATF enforces the nation's firearms, arson, and explosive laws. Obviously, we primarily focus on the firearms laws.
And so you're employed by the state or the federal government?
The federal government.
Okay. As part of that, well, I'm sorry, let me get to this. A little bit about your experience and background that brings you here to testify. How long have you been a special agent? How long have you been with the ATF?
It'll be 15 years in July.
Okay, how long have you been a special agent?
Been a special agent it'll be approaching 11 years in July.
And what does special agent mean?
A special agent, so if it means we're a criminal investigator trained in investigating for the purposes of ATF, the crime underneath the jurisdiction
I'm an agent,
of ATF, but also
I'm
we assist
special.
with other federal investigations and obviously state and local investigations. For ATF, primarily involving the use of firearms.
And what is your educational background?
I have a degree from Oakland University in political science. I spent 1 year at law school at the Catholic University of America. And then obviously I was trained at the ATF National Academy for the requisite training to become an ATF agent.
Delphi trial just got set, Jay.
Shit, when?
You're based in Michigan.
May 13th.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Do you have any interaction with state investigations? And if so, what are they?
Yes, I've had many throughout my career. Right now I'm assigned to the Pontiac Gun Violence Task Force. It's a partnership between the Oakland County Sheriff's Office and the ATF. In that role, we investigate both state and federal firearms violations occurring within the city of Pontiac, primarily shootings.
And do you ever respond to or have anything to do with investigations that don't involve shootings?
Yes.
What kind of?
So generally, for whether it's the task force or just as an ATF agent, it's primarily the criminal possession and use of firearms.
So in other words, it doesn't have to be a shooting. It could just be a possession of
Sure, yeah.
firearms? Okay.
Yes.
About how many shooting investigations have you been a part of?
Hundreds at this point in my career.
And do you, as a part of in your role, have a general understanding of the laws associated with purchasing firearms, both in the state and federally, or just federally?
Both specific to this investigation, it would be both. Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what FFL stands for?
Yes. So an FFL is a federal firearms licensee. I think we heard testimony obviously in here before from Kami Beck. She was the employee from the gun store in Oxford, as we're referring to it. That would be a federally licensed gun store, which is the technical term for that is a federal firearms licensee.
And in order to become a licensee, what does that seller have to do or comply with?
So there's an application process that they have to go through with the ATF to become a federal firearms licensee.
And then are there guidelines or requirements they must follow?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna get to that in a minute. Do you know James Crumbley?
I did.
And how did you come to know James Crumbley?
I became aware of who James Crumbly was the date of the shooting on November 30th, 2021. And I had contact with him inside of his residence during an execution of a search warrant that night.
Do you see him in the courtroom here today?
I do.
Can you describe something he's wearing?
He's wearing a white shirt, a blue tie, and headphones.
May the record reflect he's properly identified the defendant, Your Honor.
The record would reflect in-court identification of the defendant, James Crumbley.
Thank you. What, if anything, did you review in your role as the officer in charge in this case?
A vast amount of information. So there would be the returns of 7 cell phones that were forensically extracted, social media returns, financial information, firearms records, including from the federal firearms licensee, and other documents and records, and surveillance video, obviously.
You were in the courtroom. Were you in the courtroom when Ed Wogrowski testified about forensic cell phone data?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury what software or program you used?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. The question is what Mr. Wogrowski used. I don't know that Agent Brandon knows that.
I corrected myself in that question purposely to say what you use. Are you aware of what was the investigation tool they used in cell phones?
But the ATF.
They both did. I'm trying to lay a foundation. Are you aware of, may I ask the questioner? Are you aware of that tool?
Yes, it was the same tool. So Detective Wogrowski used Cellbrite, put it in a readable format. When he spoke about a readable format, it's Cellbrite. And that's the format that I reviewed the forensic extractions in.
Okay, which is what I was trying to get at. You have experience, do you have experience in this investigation reviewing the Cellbrite information, which is the cell phone data?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I want to draw your attention to November 30th of 2021 and ask you to first explain where you were when you heard about the shooting.
So I was in the ATF headquarters for the Detroit Field Division. It's in downtown Detroit. I was in an office that I shared at the time with my partner, and the assistant special agent in charge at the time came in. He knew I was from the Orient, Oxford area and let me know that there was a shooting at Oxford High School.
You currently are there or you grew up there?
Both.
All right. What did you do?
I grabbed my bag and I ran out the door.
Did you go with anyone else? Was it discussed about what you were planning on doing, what the plan was, who was going, who wasn't going?
No, I just ran out the door and got to my car in the parking structure, turned on the lights and sirens, and then drove up I-75 in towards the direction of Oxford High School.
Do you typically work with a partner?
Yes,
Was he there that day?
he was.
Did you let him know you were going, or did he come with you?
At the beginning, at the time, no, I didn't let him know. He was stepped out for a minute, and I didn't even think about it. I was so focused on getting to the school.
Okay. About how long or does it take to get from Detroit to Oxford School?
It depends on traffic. It could be an hour. It could be more. It could be a little bit less, just depending on the time of day.
And did you have a familiarity with the area?
Yes.
Okay. What, if anything, did you know about that incident when you left?
All I knew when I left was that there was a shooting. As I drove northbound, I did receive information from our intelligence unit that there was a confirmed shooting. It was not a false alarm.
Okay. And what did you do as a result of that?
I continued to drive north on I-75, and at some point, I believe it was in Troy, met up with other law enforcement, forming like a caravan, like others have Detective Wogrowski testified to, traveling north on 75, and then getting to the exit at exit 81, where the old Palace of Auburn Hills used to be.
So the caravan, were there other people on the highway?
Yes.
This whole caravan, was it just law enforcement?
It was law enforcement. I believe at one point there was even a news truck trying to follow the caravan. I wasn't sure if they were aware, but I think they were just running parallel with the caravan.
And was it licensed sirens?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of rate of speed?
It was very fast, but it was as safe as we could be.
Okay. Can you tell the jury and describe what it was like driving up to Oxford School that day?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance.
Yeah, why is it relevant?
Because he's describing the scene and what he did and how he got into the school. And it was the scene of the shooting, and he was part of the investigation of the shooting.
Okay, so start there. So you arrive at the scene, you arrive at Oxford High School. Is that where you went first?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you describe the scene in terms of, was it easy to get there? Were there cars? Were there students?
So as we're getting to the school through obviously Lake Orion and Oxford, it's travel through there. All the cars were parked on the right side of the road, and so it was almost like the left lane. There were no cars in it, and people knew what was going on at that point. It had seemed that word had spread because no one was moving. It wasn't just like you normally would get over and then get back over in the left lane. People were just parked on the road. As I got in towards the school, I started noticing that there was a large group of people at the Meyer, and obviously learned later that was the reunification point. When I arrived at the school, there were a lot of law enforcement personnel. I can't even put a number on it. It was dozens, maybe 100 in the main vestibule area where like the front offices were located.
So when you arrived, were there more than one law enforcement agency? Was there more than one represented?
Yes, there were quite a few.
Okay. Did you know anything about where the alleged shooter was, whether there were victims? What did you know when you approached the building?
At that point, I had a conversation with someone in our intelligence group that had confirmed related information that they'd received that there were fatalities, there were injured victims.
Did you know whether or not the shooter was in custody?
No, I didn't. I assumed that I didn't hear any gunfire when I got to the school, so I assumed that either the shooter was in custody or it was a barricade. I wasn't sure what was going on, but I knew that it was not an active shooting scene.
Did you do anything before you entered the building? Were you carrying a weapon?
Yeah, so I put on my vest and then ran to the front of the school with other people from the parking lot that were approaching the school. As I got closer, the person at the door verified my identity as a law enforcement officer, and then at that time was informed that the shooter was in custody and that they were starting kind of to figure out who was going to be responsible for what inside of the school. As you can imagine, it was a very chaotic scene. And
okay. You mentioned a vestibule when you earlier. What do you mean?
It was like the front area in front of like the front of the school where you'd have like offices where you check in if you were taking your kid out sick for the day. It was the main office area, and that's where I was directed to meet with Lieutenant Willis, who was identified as being the officer in charge of the scene.
Is there a difference between the phase of clearing a crime scene versus evidence collection?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what the difference is and what comes first and what that is like?
Sure. So at least the way ATF is trained, it would be an active shooter response would be to train and to find and eliminate the threat. After that, this occurred, you have a clearing of the school, tactical clearing of the school to ensure there's no other bodies, secondary devices, or things of that nature. In this instance, it became clear that there were two things going on at once. There was people volunteering to clear the school for a second time, and then there was Lieutenant Willis, who was directing more of the investigative aspects of this case.
When you arrived, do you know about what time you arrived?
I don't recall exactly what time I arrived now.
Okay. Were there still students in the school?
Not if there were, if they were in classroom, I wasn't aware of it. I did not see any students when I got to the school.
Was part of your role to engage in clearing the school?
So generally, yes, with ATF, we would be involved in clearing the school, the active shooter response, the clearing of the school, and then the investigation.
I mean, when you got there that day, did you help clear the school?
I did not. Based on the fact that the investigation had started, that the shooter was in custody and they had the weapon secured, I thought the best use of my abilities as an ATF agent would be to start the trace of the firearm to determine how it ended up there.
Okay. You just said you found Lieutenant Willis. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Where was he standing?
He was standing in front of the school offices. At one point, he was standing on a chair directing people around. Like I said, it was a very, very chaotic. But I found Lieutenant Willis, and I believe someone had told him I would be coming to help trace the firearm, and that's when I went over and located it.
And before that, did you ever met Lieutenant Willis?
No.
Okay. And what happened next?
So Lieutenant Willis held up a trash bin that had the murder weapon, several magazines, ammunition, and the shooter's cell phone inside, and I was able to take photographs of it.
Okay. A trash bin, a plastic trash bin,
Yeah, so trash, not a one you throw like a school lunch in, but like a small one you have in like an office, like a square or rectangle trash bin.
and if you know, what was it doing there? Or how did it get there?
It was my understanding that that evidence was placed in there to keep it safe while they were continuing to clear the school.
Okay. And you said he held it up, and then what happened?
I took photographs of the evidence, specifically the markings on the firearm that I needed to start the tracing process.
And when you say markings, what do you mean by markings?
So the firearms are required to have a make, model, and a serial number. Those three items are necessary to start the trace for ATF to determine where it was first sold.
Did you actually physically pick up the weapon?
I don't believe so. I don't think we wanted to preserve the evidence. I believe that the firearm was already flipped in a way that had the markings visible. I believe I just took a photograph of it and then provided that information to the intelligence group that would initiate the actual digital part of the trace.
Okay. Once you did that, what did you do next?
So once that process had been started, I went to Lieutenant Sam Marsban, who I had known from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office based on prior investigations in Pontiac, and asked what could be done, what needed to be done. And at that time, I began collecting facts for the timeline for a search warrant affidavit for the Crumbley's family residence.
Okay. Did you, well, we'll get to that. As part of your investigation, did you ever look at the surveillance video of the shooting?
Yes.
Okay. Before we get to that, what are the steps and how long does it take to trace a firearm through the ATF?
So the timing of every trace is going to be different based on the records and how fast they're able to get to ATF. So it'll help you to understand the tracing process starts with those three things, right? The make, model, and serial number of the firearm. Once you have that information and you input it, you can trace it back to the first manufacturer, right? And when the manufacturer is then contacted by ATF, they can tell you which federally licensed gun store they sold it to, and then that gun store has to tell you who was the first person that purchased that firearm.
And did you learn who that was?
Yes, it was an individual in Rochester, Michigan, who had obtained the firearm from the gun store in Oxford.
And then was that person contacted?
Yes.
And were they contacted by you or someone on your team?
It was two ATF agents assigned to the same division I'm assigned to.
And what did they learn?
They learned that that individual had sold the firearm back to the Oxford gun store sometime in early September.
And then what did they do?
They went to the gun store and spoke to Miss Cammie Back, who testified previously, and learned that the firearm was in fact, purchased by Mr. Crumbly on November 26, 2021.
So 4 days earlier.
Yes.
Okay. And if we can stop for a moment. Did you just say September?
I meant November. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you to Mr. Case who pointed that out. November, correct?
November.
Okay.
Yes. And
If we want to stop here for a moment, walk us through a general purchase of a firearm through a federally firearm licensee.
sure. So if you walk into a gun store today to buy a firearm, you have to fill out what Ms. Back testified was called an ATF Form 4473. It would have information about yourself as well as information about the firearm you're purchasing. The FFL employee then would contact the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, the NICS system, through the FBI. And once they're given the okay to sell you the firearm, they proceed with that.
Do you know if that protocol and procedure was followed here?
Yes,
In this
it was.
case, all right. You just stated that in order to buy a firearm, you have to go through all those steps. Is that all guns? Do you have to go through this process?
So for every firearms sale from a federal firearms licensee, you do have to fill out the ATF 4473 and have those steps be fulfilled, yes.
Does that include all guns, long guns and pistols?
Yes.
Okay, and Are there differences in long guns versus pistols
Yes.
in terms of who can buy them and where?
Yes, in terms of age and things like that, there are different restrictions on the types of firearms you're purchasing.
Okay, and in general, how would you describe the restrictions on what is more restricted and less restricted?
Sure. So under federal law, if you're going to buy a firearm from a federal firearms licensee, you have to be 21 years of age to buy a handgun and 18 to buy a long gun. That would be either a rifle or a shotgun.
All right. And what about registering a weapon?
So there's no federal requirement for registration of a weapon. There is, however, obviously based on my experience in this case and others through the task force work, I'm aware obviously in Michigan that there are certain registration requirements for handguns.
And why, but the same requirements for long guns?
No.
And do you know why that is?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Only if you know, did you
I
say?
have to ask him first if he knows. That's what I'm trying to do.
Did you say in the state, there is a federally, but there's a state?
Correct.
State of Michigan.
Through your position in the ATF, do you know
I
why?
think that's my question.
Yes, I thought he
State of
did.
Michigan?
It is the state of Michigan, yes.
Thank you.
Do you know why there are more restrictions on handguns?
I believe it's due to concealability.
Okay. Under state law, who can register a weapon?
Under state law, register a handgun?
Yes.
Okay. So under state law, you can register a handgun at 18 years old, but obviously you can't buy one until you're 21 from a federal firearms licensee. So you can, in one way, buy a private sale from someone that's 18 to someone that's over 18, and then register that firearm. So I have seen through previous experience that you could register a weapon at 18, a handgun, but you could not purchase that handgun from a federally licensed gun store, if that makes sense.
Okay. Were you made aware at some point if James Crumbley owned any other weapons other than the weapon he purchased on November 26th?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the reference of a weapon. I think it's a vague question. I think what Agent Brandon is aware of is alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. I think that the classification of a weapon is vague. If the prosecution is asking about firearms or handguns or pistols, then I think that should be the question and not specifically a weapon.
Well, this response can clarify that.
Correct, Your Honor.
Right? So go ahead.
You were made aware, what other, the reason I'm using weapon is because I don't want to specify because that'd be leading, so I'm trying to get him to explain it without asking a leading question. You were made aware, what did he also own or purchase, if you know?
So in June of that year, he had also purchased a Cobra Classic Derringer and also a Keltec P17 .22 caliber pistol from that same gun store in Oxford.
So that was about 5 months earlier?
Yes.
Okay. Were both of those guns bought at the same time?
They were bought within several days of each other, but they were not bought at the same time.
And how, did the gun store have any record of those sales?
Yes.
What was it?
So they had the 4473 documenting the sale of the Derringer, as well as a sales receipt and a Michigan pistol sales record documenting the sale to Mr. Crumbly for both the Derringer and the Keltec pistols. Okay.
So you've indicated now 3 separate handguns. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I am going to start asking you about each of these handguns and describe the difference in each. I'm putting on gloves because this is evidence and I want to touch it with my gloves on. And the first handgun I'm going to ask you about is the handgun purchased on November 26th. Do you know what type of handgun it was?
Yes.
What was it?
It was a 6-hour SP 2022 with a specified serial number.
And so was it a 9mm?
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. So before I do that, Special Agent Brandon, what is the way to handle a handgun safely before you even pick it up? I know there are firearm safety guidelines, but how do you make sure when you're handling a weapon for the first time, that you're doing so in a safe way before.
Object to relevance, right?
I think the element of the crime that the defendant is charged with goes back to a legal duty in handling and storing a firearm. And so I absolutely think it's relevant
Okay, do you mean picking it up or?
in every way. Thank you. How do you safely pick up a handgun?
Sure. So based on the fact, so there is a zip tie in it, so everyone is aware that firearm has been made safe already, but for the purposes of this, so if you pick up the firearm, you want to keep it pointed in a safe direction, you want to keep your finger off the trigger, and you want to visually and physically inspect the chamber of the weapon and the magazine well of the weapon to make sure that it's not loaded.
Okay, so I'm gonna pick up this. We know that is this the murder weapon?
Yes, it is.
All right. And we know that this has a zip tie in it.
Correct.
Okay.
Can you specify what exhibit number that is?
Yes, I'm sorry. 163.
Just real quick, for those who didn't watch the Rush trial, we had a witness who literally pointed a gun at the judge. So I don't think this witness is going to do that.
He was a gun safety expert at that, Jay.
Gun safety expert.
The irony.
This is a murder weapon. There's a zip tie in it.
That's some shit
but
I'd do, because I don't
even
know
if there
jack shit
isn't,
about guns.
The general principle is to make sure the firearm is safe. You just said you physically examined the magazine well. Is that this right here?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And then you also have to do a second step, did you say?
Yeah, so the same thing. So I would say physically and visually inspect the chamber of the weapon. So down the barrel, if you look down the barrel right
So
there,
right
yeah,
here?
to make sure there's not a round inserted into the chamber of the firearm.
Okay. And again, there's a zip tie in here, but in order to comply with that, you'd have to physically inspect to make sure there's no round in this chamber.
Correct.
And why, what's the reason for that?
So with firearm, there's four basic principles of firearm safety. I mentioned two of them. Number one is to treat every firearm like it's loaded. Number two is to point the firearm in a safe direction. Three would be keep your finger off the trigger, and then obviously not for report purposes, but if you're at a range or shooting, is to be mindful of your target and what's beyond it. At least that's the way ATF trains the four pillars of firearm safety. So the purpose would be to make sure that firearm's not loaded, that in case the trigger was accidentally or unintentionally discharged, that there's not an actual round.
Judy Jettison. It's a great handle.
Is it possible for a firearm to discharge without touching the actual trigger?
That would depend on a lot of different factors, including the type of firearm.
Okay.
I probably can't answer that question.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned earlier that you have to identify certain markings. Where are, and I'm going to give you some gloves if you don't mind. It doesn't make this long, but it's still, okay. If you wouldn't mind standing, if that's okay with the judge.
Okay.
I'm going to hand this handgun to you, safely pointed down, so you can show the jury what markings you're talking about to identify the weapon.
So as you can see right here, it's kind of hard to see with the light, but it says Sig Sauer, that would be the manufacturer. And then you have the serial number as well as the caliber generally also stamped on there as well.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to put this safely back into its box. And then do you know what these are?
Yes, those are the pistol magazines that come with the Sig Sauer SP 2022.
Okay, and just in case there are people on the jury that don't have a familiarity with handguns, what are these for? What's inside here usually?
So in a semi-automatic pistol, you would load your ammunition. Those magazines, I believe, can take up to 15 rounds. So you'd load the 9mm ammunition to capacity to 15 rounds, and then insert that into the firearm. And then once you send the slide forward, that is what allows the round to be chambered into the firearm to be ready to be discharged.
So it has a 15 round capacity.
So it would have a 15-round magazine capacity. You can also fit one round in the chamber. So that firearm has a total capacity of 16 rounds.
Before you would have to reload.
Yes.
Okay. So can you explain to the jury what semi-automatic means?
So a semi-automatic firearm means that for every pull of the trigger, it only fires one projectile from the firearm, as opposed to a automatic firearm, which would be that if you pull the trigger one time, multiple rounds are dispelled from the firearm with one pull of the trigger.
The other two weapons you stated were a Derringer and a 22, correct?
It was a 22 caliber Derringer and a 22 caliber Cobra Classic, or a 22 caliber Kel-Tec pistol.
Okay, so Kel-Tec, all right. What is the difference between those two guns and a 9mm?
So a Kel-Tec, the Kel-Tec pistol is also a semi-automatic pistol. It's just chambered in 22 caliber as opposed to 9mm. It's a smaller round,
And again, you say round, and I think for lay people, they think of that as many, but what do you mean when you say round?
So I know that there's been some talk in this trial about bullets. Bullets are the part of the piece of ammunition that comes out of the firearm when it's shot. The round of ammunition is what's inserted into the magazine before it's fired. That has the fired cartridge case, the bullet itself, and then some type of propellant or powder, usually smokeless powder.
Okay, so a bullet is what comes out of the shell casing and is expelled from the chamber, but a round includes the shell casing and the bullet and any kind of, what was the last thing?
Yes, it would be like the powder that's used to. So
Okay.
they would be the round of ammunition is the actual full piece of ammunition prior to being fired.
Okay. And does the 22 that James Crumbley owned, does it shoot or fire faster? Does it have a larger capacity magazine?
So I'm not an expert on ballistics and traveling with speed of firearms, but as far as capacity goes, it's got, I think the Kel-Tec P17 has a 17 round total capacity, but the actual round of ammunition itself, the 9mm versus the 22, the 9mm is going to be a wider round. So what the caliber refers to is the diameter of the bore, or the inside of the barrel. So it would mean that the 9mm round is bigger, and based on the size of the round, it's got more. It's going to be heavier. So the damage from that round would be more than a 22 caliber round. Does that make sense?
What kind of handgun does law enforcement usually carry?
9mm generally. At ATF we carry 9mm, and most of the departments and agencies I work with carry 9mm.
And do you know why?
Your Honor, I would object to relevance.
How is it relevant?
It goes to the power and the use for a 9mm versus the weapon that the two handguns that James Crumbley already owned.
I guess I would normally agree with you, but we've heard testimony in this trial that the shooter was intent, even after the family owned two other guns, on having his father buy a 9mm. So I'm going to allow it.
Thank you. Can you tell the jury why law enforcement usually carries a 9mm, or you do with ATF? If you know. Sure.
So my understanding, based on the reasoning that ATF uses and other agencies, is that it's a powerful round that could be used to neutralize a threat. It's not going to over-penetrate, and the advancements in ballistics have made a 9mm the ideal round for law enforcement for using in defense.
And to put this into context, the hundreds of shooting investigations that you've conducted or have been a part of, are those done normally with a 22 or 9mm or something else? If you can say
Sure.
generally.
I don't think I can't recall working a shooting with more than one victim involving a 22 caliber firearm. I can't recall several shootings that I've worked in the past with multiple victims involving a 9mm.
All right, thank you. I'm going to put this back in the evidence box and hand it to Lieutenant Willis, who is in charge
Your Honor,
of.
may we approach, please?
Trying to figure out what exactly this witness is going to get in. How to safely use a gun. I don't.
No, it's not really relevant.
What's his purpose?
I think they're trying to just. I think they're taking a very long route to getting to the fact that James Crumbley wasn't employing any kind of gun safety with respect to that weapon, man. Taking a very long route to it, showing how powerful the weapon is.
Right.
And, just ask the question. You know, was there any evidence that they ever used whatever that strap is called?
You think that's what this like defense is? She's like, what are we doing here? Like, let's just get to the point. Like, what are you?
I
wonder
mean,
what.
that's what I'd be saying, you know.
Oh, Sarah says he's going to testify about the lockbox. The code was still at 000, which is the factory set. Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
Good job, Sarah. Yeah, they're a lot more civilized in this trial. The male prosecutor here, he's not going at it with defense counsel like he was with Shannon. It was very contentious, Jay. It was a very contentious relationship between those two.
More contentious than the Russ. They were going at it too, man.
Way more, dude.
Wow.
Like that was next level. This thing.
This is what we love to hear, Bob. I think Mom Crime Junkie just came over to your channel. Came from Jay.
Oh,
love your commentary. That's what we love to see both ways. Thank you, Mom.
Oh, we love that. That's right. That's right. All my people that are not subbed to Jay's, you're not going to be my friends anymore unless you sub to Jay right now. So, like, just remember that, and I mean it. And all you bows, come on over.
And by the way, you just, if you're on my channel, you're not familiar with Bob. If you're familiar with the Delphi case, you're not going to get any better information. Bob, you just said the trial date has been set.
May 13th, man. It's going down, dude. And that is not going to be televised. So I will have the best coverage of that case by far, because I will
So what do you think? You're gonna go in, take notes, come out, and then like do a debriefing, everyone? Like,
yeah, I'll do a live every night, going through all the witnesses that were called, all the high points, the low points, and all the points in between, and everyone's gonna know exactly what's going on with that case, and I will be giving them the straight dope, as only a defense attorney can. I mean, it's one thing to have reporters come out and talk shit. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Right. So
misquoting law, all kinds of shit. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Starting a couple days earlier, because I'm worrying it's gonna butt up against CrimeCon. So, which, by the way, I talked to my girl Elise, and I'm hoping that you're going to be getting an email soon, buddy.
Oh, nice. You just got a new member, Deb Ann.
Welcome, Deb. KTG. Family hug. Fam hugs. I love to give hugs to all of your members.
All right, I'm going to now introduce Exhibit 164. And okay, what is this?
That's the Cobra ENT Classic 2-shot 22 caliber Derringer purchased by Mr. Crumbley. I believe he paid for it on the 15th of June of 2021 and picked it up on the 16th of June 2021.
Okay, and this is pretty small.
Yes.
Okay, so what is this used for typically, if you know? And how many rounds can it?
It can hold 2 rounds. I mean, in today's, I don't know if I can say exactly what it's used for. People use firearms for very different purposes, but I know that that's been used in the past for a variety of different things.
Okay. And again, this was purchased when, if you know?
It was June 16th of 2021.
Okay. And that was 164.
Thank you, Joanne. You rock as always.
Aw, love Joanne.
And this is 165.
She's what I call an always
again,
giver, Jay. She's an always
you know
giver.
what this is?
She is.
Yes, that's the Keltec P17 22 caliber pistol purchased by Mr. Crumbly on June 17th of 2021.
Okay, and if you know, was this weapon made safe by you or somebody else before I handle it?
Yes.
And how was it made safe?
When I was going through the from last trial, cutting off zip ties and putting new ones on, I racked the slide 3 times, made sure there was no round in the chamber, and then myself and Lieutenant Willis installed zip ties on firearms.
Okay, so there's a zip tie on this.
Yes.
Okay. And again, can you tell the jury what this is? What caliber of weapon this is?
Yes, that's a 22 caliber pistol.
Okay, and in a moment, we're going to see the defendant's son handling a video. Is this the weapon that he was handling in that video?
Yes.
Oh, Dizzy
Okay.
got gifted the membership.
I'm going to hand this to you.
How doesn't
I'd
like
like
Dizzy
you to explain to the jury
will never
how to
have to pay for a
safely
membership to my
handle this weapon
channel.
in terms of what the safety means on and off.
I got to figure out a way to make her like a perma fixture.
I wish I could do that. I don't know if there's.
I know
This
there's
is
got to
the,
be some kind of way.
Caltech P17 pistol. So it's not an official phrase, but it's what one a lot of people use is red means dead. So when the safety is off,
Still working on
you
it,
see red
JW.
dot. So to engage the safety, you have
Kind of
to
like the Armada,
put the safety
you know,
on.
like
I don't
a
think it's gonna do that now
Armada
with the
fleet,
auto
an
now.
Armada.
That's cool. I like that.
It's pretty good.
Sliding all the way
Pretty
forward.
good.
But now the safety.
Allie's not a big fan of the
if you pull the
facties.
trigger, it's not supposed to fire.
She doesn't love
And when you come back
facties.
down, that means red means dead. That means the safety is off.
Okay, and that, is this also, do you use a magazine with this gun?
Yes,
Okay, and how many rounds, if you know, does it hold?
16 rounds in the chamber, 1 round in the or in the magazine, 1 round in the chamber for a total of 17.
Our moderators name themselves the Moderators.
That's awesome.
It's just pretty good.
That's
Pretty
good.
good. It's pretty good. It was supposed to be like ARIDRS, but
any
they changed it to TERS.
gun cases recovered in the home?
Yes.
All right,
That's right, Missy.
I'm handing you what's People's Exhibit 166. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, this is the pistol case that goes with the Caltech P17 pistol. that
Todd,
I
we
was
see
just
you
holding.
everywhere, Todd. We love you, man.
It was located in the kitchen under the, like it's the island in the kitchen of the Crumbley residence.
Well, look at this,
Okay,
Bob.
and can you,
Boom.
if you don't mind standing
$50.
and showing how that is?
Who got that? You or me?
You.
Oh man, Jolene. Can we play the
And this is
Jolene
the,
song, please?
6 hour. The
Anybody have
K-Lock
that clip?
comes with a 6 hour pistol.
Jolene.
We're gonna get to that.
Inside
Jolene.
the Caltech box.
So
Thank you, Jolene.
this is exhibit,
She said, "I just to hear Bob say, "Aw, family."
Sorry, Jolene. I only do that for memberships. Kidding. Aw, family hug. I love you. Thank you so much. Allie does not love that, but I love it. I'm never gonna stop.
proposed exhibit 42. This case was this cable lock found in this case?
Yes,
God
Okay.
damn it,
And
Mandy.
you said it was located.
Why do
in
you
the
always have to
kitchen?
be right?
Where exactly in the kitchen, if you know?
I believe it was one of the cabinets underneath the island of the kitchen or a kitchen cabinet.
Okay, was there any gun in it?
No,
Okay, thank you.
That's the
Factoids.
This
Yes,
is
Your Honor.
this is the Caltech box. 166.
Anything that ends in oids reminds me of hemorrhoids.
All right,
I don't know.
and
I had to think on that one, Joanne.
was there
I
any
love you.
other
I'm not dismissing it.
case found in the home?
yes, one
Gun
of them.
case. Okay.
The shorty
I wanna
likes
just make a
factoids.
distinction here. Is there a difference between a gun case and a gun safe?
Yes,
Okay. What
Droids.
is it? And when I'm saying safe, I mean a portable safe.
sure. So a gun case is generally what comes from the manufacturer, or sometimes a gun store, if they're selling you a used firearm, will use an old.
How
gun
dare
case
you, Todd?
to give
How
with
dare
but
you?
The Caltech box I was just holding has 2 holes in it that can be
Let me hear your
locked. That's a
Jolene.
gun case. That's
Or
what comes
Jay.
with
Say
the
what he
purpose
says.
of a
Do a better,
firearm.
Jolene.
So
No one
they
wants to hear
handle it
me.
most of the time.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yes, there are holes on both sides that a locking mechanism could be run.
Oh, I did
through
talk
to
about
lock
this,
the
Bob.
case
I don't know if you're a
Did
White
you
Stripes
find
fan. I
any
love the
of
White
those
Stripes.
locking
They do
mechanisms,
an
or was it
awesome cover
just
of
like
Jolene.
this?
There were no locking mechanisms in it.
I love Jack
Okay.
White for sure.
I'm gonna hand you People's Exhibit 167. And you might have to stand to show the jury so they can.
These
know
are
what
the
the-
factoids you're
You know
looking
what that
for.
is?
Yes, this is a.
You guys are selling me on
A
factoids.
small pistol safe, so it's got a combination lock and,
Who you with? Come in with the deep legal knowledge.
so it would just, you close the lock, it's typical, your standard combination lock, you close it, spin the dial and have your combination code.
And do you know where that was found in the house?
Yes, it was in the.
Shannon,
TV
I
stand in
still would
Crumbley,
not want to get
Mr.
shot
Mr.
with a
Mrs.
Derringer
Crumbley's
bullet.
bedroom on the right-hand side.
Weak or not,
Yeah.
sounds like it would
All
hurt.
right, and was there anything in it?
Yes,
What was in it?
So there was the Kel-Tec P17 pistol as well as a Derringer 22-shot 22 caliber handgun as well, both inside this safe.
And that was the small.
Good tip, Phoenix.
gun
So there you go, y'all.
that we just showed the jury, correct?
Correct.
Phoenix
they both
says if
fit
you
in.
like,
And then the Kel-Tec that you
and
just showed them
comment in
with
the
safety.
chat that
Yes,
when
those
people
two.
gift out our memberships,
So-
you will be a lucky winner.
There's a combination on this thing,
Yes.
Thanks, Shannon.
and do you know what the combination was?
Well, I know what it is. I just opened it. It's 000.
Okay, was this the combination at
There
the
it
time when this safe was found?
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Does the SIG fit in that gun case?
It does
The
not.
gun safe.
It does not fit.
Even if it's just by itself without any other handgun?
Correct.
Okay.
Amanda, $10 holla. Love you. Long time, Amanda.
Was there any other case found in the home?
Yes.
And I'm gonna hand you what's been marked as.
Amanda
people
giving us
whose
both
exhibit.
$10. Thank you so
Oh
much.
man, come on! What a
And what is
an
this?
always giver.
This is
What a
the,
sweet person.
This is
Thank
the
you,
6
Amanda.
Hour SP 2022, the murder weapon. This is the pistol case that would have came with it. Similar to the Kel-Tec, it does have 2 holes to be locked as well.
Okay, and I'm gonna open that. All right, and where was this found, if you know?
This was found on the on top of the bed in the
Whoa.
Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley's bedroom.
Was there anything?
Wow, you guys are being just really kind. Thank you so much, Shiraz,
Oh,
gifting out
God.
10 memberships. Thank you so much, Shiraz. She's another
Shiraz
always
she,
giver.
she is an always giver. I love Shiraz. She's amazing. You guys are crushing the I had some kind of horrible typo in my last comment there. Ebing. That was supposed to
Wow.
be being so generous.
And
Thank
Laura
you,
just
guys.
gifted out 50 memberships.
Oh,
Wow, Laura.
Laura. Aw, 50 fam hugs. So many hugs.
Thank you so
Love it.
much, guys.
Dude, you guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much.
At the time, no, it looked like this.
Okay, was there anything underneath the phone?
I learned later that there was, yes.
Okay, do you wanna tell the jury what that was?
Yes. So there is a receipt for the SP 2022 from the gun store in Oxford, as well as the ATF Youth Handgun Safety Act notice pamphlet that was previously discussed.
Okay, and is that something they have to provide?
Yes.
All right, Special Agent Brandon, what was your reaction to finding that? When did you find that the pamphlet was in here? Do you know?
For this pamphlet, I found that this was in the case during preparation for the trial of Mr. Crumbley's wife.
And did you know where it was at, up until that point?
Your Honor, I would object to relevance on this line of questioning.
About where it was.
Mhm.
I guess I didn't really understand the question.
Yeah, 50
Where that box
memberships.
was.
I've got a
So I don't want to
snub
put words in
that
his mouth, but as
named
an
Nav
offer
the
of proof,
EO that gives
it was not clear to
$50
Special Agent Brandon
like,
based on
drops
the crime
$50
scene
membership
and the
bombs
search
like
of the home,
every life. It's incredibly
where the
informative.
ATF pamphlet was that he knew had to have been sold with this gun. And he picked up the phone and saw it sometime after, is what he's saying.
Okay.
So not the case itself, Your Honor, but the pamphlet that was within the case along with the receipt. I'm objecting to the relevance of questions about that, not the case itself.
Okay, well, I think that the pamphlet being sold with the gun is relevant and its location in the home is relevant, so I'm gonna overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'm going to ask him about the pamphlet and ask to read excerpts of the pamphlet. And I know that opposing counsel actually asked Ed Wagrowski to do that, so I'm hoping there's not an objection, but I can lay a proper foundation if there is.
Okay, now I don't know the answer. to the
You should
question.
keep the gun in the
Thank you,
box.
Your Honor. What was your reaction to
We'll
that?
stipulate
To
to
finding the
that.
pamphlet?
Yes.
So when I lifted up the phone and saw the pamphlet in there, I was shocked.
Okay, why?
Yeah, as the pamphlet says on the front, it says Youth Handgun Safety Act notice. Means they were on notice. They had to pick this up and move it to the back of that gun case and basically discard it underneath the phone.
Okay, and Can you tell the jury what's the purpose of the law requiring that pamphlet to be
Purple,
given
I'm
to
gonna make
someone
that happen for
purchasing
you.
a gun?
Aw,
The purpose of doing a read from it.
First, I want you to tell me the purpose, and then I want you to read it.
So the purpose of the pamphlet is
Steve,
to
you'll do
inform the buyer of the firearm that that juvenile gun violence is a major problem, and that safely securing your firearm will prevent that from happening.
Okay, and if you open it up, where does it refer to that?
So on the first page, it says Youth Handgun Safety Act Notice, and there's 4 bullet points. The first says the misuse of handguns is a leading contributor to juvenile violence and fatalities. And the second one says safely storing and securing firearms away from children will help prevent the unlawful possession of handguns by juveniles, stop accidents, and save lives.
I can do that. Thank you.
Helen with 2 $5 hollows,
Yours
Jay.
is marked,
Thank you
with
so much,
pamphlet
Helen. I
as-
think she gave one to each of us. Thank you,
Oh,
Helen. You're awesome.
Helen,
I don't know
I'm
if it
still
was admitted
sitting here
previously, we
just
did discuss
swimming
it
in Laura
other
Smart's gifted
references.
50 memberships.
Amazing.
She's amazing.
Okay, we're moving for the initial.
Yes.
168.
What a human being.
Any objection?
No.
168.
All right, I want to go back to make sure, like the Caltech box, there is the same, these two like little plastic loops. What are those?
So those are designed by the manufacturer so that the case is capable of being locked, so you could actually lock your pistol inside that case.
Okay.
Yeah,
When this was
CH,
found,
that
do you know if
tie
there was any locking
it's,
mechanism in it at all?
There were not.
Okay.
really kind of induces seizures, doesn't it, a little bit?
Were the
That's good.
3 guns
Going
purchased
blind looking at
by
that thing.
James Crumbly, including the SIG for his son, did they have to be registered?
So it's my understanding.
Real quick. I just want to give folks a tip for both channels, and this is on any channel that you go on. A lot of people say, they're not sure how to turn on GIFs. If you just put in, see on the bottom here, YouTube, then you put @ whether it's the shaming of Jay, defense to any channel you follow, just put the @ and then put the tag, the backslash, and then allow _ GIFs on any channel. You put that link in, hit enter, little thing comes up, click on yes, and then you're good to go. So that works for any channel.
Oh, is that how you do it? So you have to do that in order to be able to be gifted a membership?
Yeah, sometimes you're defaulted to not being able to. I don't know what the rules are, but sometimes like it won't be on each channel. Like each channel you have to go on. So it's a little tip for you folks who want to get a membership gifted. Just make
That's
sure
a
you click on
huge
that.
tip, dude. That's a great tip. Thanks, Jay. Like I didn't even know that.
Prior investigation as part of the task force and as part of this case that the handguns were required to be registered in the state of Michigan, yes.
And what's the timing on that?
So if you receive a pistol sales record from a federal firearms licensee in the state of Michigan, you have 10 business days to drop it off, or 10 days to drop it off at like a local county sheriff's office, your local police department. In this case, obviously the murder weapon was purchased 4 days before,
Joanne,
so there's still
we
some
love
time
you.
left to drop that off. Obviously that
Thank
never
you so
occurred.
much, Joanne.
Okay.
Jedi
Were there
factoid.
were any of those handguns registered?
No.
All right. I want to go back to November 30th for a moment. And you said you connected with Lieutenant Marsban. And what was the purpose of doing that?
So the purpose of connecting with him at the time was to help in any way I could. He had started working on a search warrant from the Crumbley family residence. And as a part of that, I offered my assistance with whatever was necessary.
Did you have to watch the surveillance video, or did you watch the surveillance video?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything notable about it?
Yes, there were 3 things that, and watching the surveillance video from the shooting that I found relevant.
And what were they?
So the first was the stance that the shooter took for the shot that killed Tate. I noticed that he had some type of firearms training.
That's right,
He
Ashley.
did.
Delphi
I remember
on.
remarking in the room at the time that's what I thought. He had taken what we refer to as a shooter stance. His shoulders were rolled forward, his feet were spread. So that was the first thing that I noticed.
And what did that tell you?
I thought he had some level of proficiency with firearms, whether he had been to a gun range, whether he had training, or just been at least introduced to firearms in the past.
Okay. And then the second thing?
So the second thing was what's called a tactical magazine exchange, or what some other departments call a combat reload. So after the shooter moved through the school, and after reloading his first magazine, his firearm was completely empty, so he loaded a fully loaded magazine into the firearm and continued to shoot. After that, after firing several rounds, he ejected that magazine, placed it in his pocket, and then inserted a full magazine into the firearm so that he was fully loaded in the firearm.
And what's the purpose of that? Why is that significant?
So the way we're trained, at least for law enforcement shootings, is that if you're involved in an incident, you always want to have as much ammunition as possible. So if you have a brief moment where the gunfire is low on the gunfire, if you're in a gunfight, would be to eject your partially loaded magazine, insert a full one, but not to throw it on the ground and keep it for later in case you need it.
Guy couldn't grow a beard if he wanted to, or a
So the third thing
mustache.
was when the shooter came out of the bathroom and surrendered to law enforcement. Prior to them coming down the hallway, he took the magazine out of the firearm and he forgot to didn't wrap it around out of the chamber, so there was still a round in the chamber, I believe. But he took the magazine out and placed it on top of the trash bin, which I found unique.
When this guy gets pissed, his forehead veins, man, whew, bro,
After
they're
viewing
exploding.
that,
Guarantee it.
what did you do next as a result of noting those three things?
So my responsibility at the time was to help Lieutenant Marsman create a timeline for the affidavit.
Hey, what's up, Ned? Ned Smith.
After noting those things,
Ned been here?
The following day, the day after the shooting, I began
Love Ned.
In
to
between
start an
both of us.
investigation, thinking that the shooter had been to a gun range, contacted a gun range in the area, and confirmed he had in fact been to the range.
How did you know how did you pick
Mama
that gun?
Marketo, he is a vampire.
It's probably the most popular gun range in the area and for driving distance from the Crumbly residents.
All right, and as a
Shannon
result
nailed it.
of your investigation leading to looking
Grandpa
at gun
Munster
range
is a
visits,
younger man.
what was uncovered?
So at
Really
the gun
does
range, we
look
were
like
able
Grandpa
to,
Munster.
gun range in Clarkston, able to locate surveillance
Jay,
video
put up a
for
picture of
2
Grandpa
instances,
Munster
as well
next
as
to this
receipts
guy.
for visits. I believe there was
Before and after.
I wish I could. I don't know how to do it on.
numerous visits. I believe it was
Come
around
on,
8 total
dude.
visits.
I rely on
And
you
were
for
there
all
any other
tech things.
tools in the investigation you used to determine visits to gun range and who was there and at what time?
Yes, so in addition to the actual records and surveillance video, forensic review of the extractions of Mr. Crumbley's cell phone, as well as his son's and Mrs. Crumbley's, put together more visits to the ranges as well as videos of those instances.
I'm gonna show, just one moment here. Let's start with June 15th of 2021.
This is an unnecessarily long witness.
Do you know why that date's significant?
Yes, that was the date Mr. Crumbley initiated the purchase for the Derringer.
Okay, and the slides, in People's 169, what are we looking at?
This is a Facebook conversation between James and Jennifer Crumbley on the 15th of June, 2021.
Okay, now time, it says UTC -4, 11:34 a.m. Is that the actual time?
Yes,
Okay, and can you read the text in blue? What does blue indicate? Which person?
blue is Jennifer Crumbley, green is going to be James Crumbley.
Okay, and can you read those texts?
Yeah, so
These
Jennifer.
messages.
So Jennifer Crumbley asks, talk at 12, and then Mr. Crumbley responds, taking Ethan to store at 12, and then Mrs. Crumbley asks if you get gun.
Okay, and then the next.
Holy shit! Jolene not only gave you 50, she just gave me 50. Gotta give some.
Boom.
So much, Jolene.
Jolene.
Thank you so much. That is so kind.
Jolene is
He's
an unbelievable
answering
human.
her?
Yes.
Okay,
Seriously.
Mr.
Wow.
Crumbley responds, yes, and Mo, I believe that's supposed to be no. Jennifer responds, huh? And then James says, we paid for the gun and bought it, but can't pick it up till everything clears Washington, in parentheses, FBI. Could be today, tomorrow, or next day, they don't know. And then Mrs. Crumbley responds, gotcha, bring me those fruit punch things when you come to bring hay.
all right, the message about he had to wait, did you, through your investigation, did it reveal that that's consistent with what happened?
Yes.
Okay, and remind the jury why.
So sometimes when you purchase a firearm, the background may take a little bit of time, depending on a lot of different factors. And in this case, it it took enough time to where Mr. Crumbley had to come back the next day to pick up the firearm.
I thought it was garlic.
Okay, and
Garlic
then the
got
next exhibit,
the
People's
vampires at bay.
170.
Is
Do
it
you know what that
sage?
is?
Yes, this again is Facebook messages between James and Jennifer Crumbley. Blue is Jennifer, and she says, "How much is your gun?" And Mr. Crumbley replies,
I mean,
300.
Jolene
All right.
with 100 gifted memberships, Jay. 100, bro.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as
That's a lot,
admitted as
man.
People's
That's
29.
super generous.
This is a receipt for, what is it for? Do you know?
This is the receipt for the Cobra for the Derringer. This is dated.
I mean, I just don't get it. This shit has come in. This exact.
I know,
thing came in.
dude. Like, what is what is
6/15, it
going
says
on? And who
16
gives a shit about the
16 at
Derringer?
top, which is the date the actual sale went through, and it's for $180.15.
So this
Pretty good
is
deal for a little pea
not
shooter.
$300. Was there a gun he purchased that was $300 that day?
Approximately, yes.
And what gun was that?
Oh,
That would have
no.
been the Kel-Tec P17 22 caliber pistol.
Oh, it's not that one either.
So the Derringer, the small one, was $169, and this is the receipt for the Cal-Tec. What else is on that receipt?
It's 2 boxes of ammunition at $14.95.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to draw your attention to June 26th, which is about 10 days later. Do you know if James Crumbley went to the gun range on that date?
Yes.
Wait, David Gray grows garlic. You need to mail it out to all of us, dude, before this guy gets off the stand. Hurry.
Sorry, I skipped.
Waste no time.
Sorry about that. June 20th.
Yes, that's correct.
And the People's 171 is on the screen. Can you tell the jury what that was? What that is?
Yes, this is again Facebook messages between James and Jennifer Crumbley. In blue, Jennifer asks, "Can you guys answer your phone?" And then James Crumbley responds, "No, at gun range, loud."
All right. And People's,
Wow.
See, now this is new. Like I think they're trying to stop it because he just said it was. He found it unique when he saw the footage from that he had a shooter stance, and now they're saying, "Hey, guess who taught him to shoot? The defendant here." That's why he knew how to do that stance. So I mean, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Did you find any videos through your investigation of the range on that day?
Yes,
And where'd you find it?
on James Crumbley's cell phone.
All right, and you're looking at 172 and 173. We're going to play those for the jury, but before we do, can you tell them what they're going to see?
Yes, so the first video is at 12:58 p.m. on June 20th, and it's a video of the shooter's son shooting the Kel-Tec pistol at the gun range. And then the following video is a video of the defendant's son shooting the Derringer at an outdoor gun range a couple minutes later.
Okay.
Same range? Both.
Yes.
But
Bye, Helen. Thanks for the $5 hollows to Jay and I. Ominous, man. He doesn't even have the ear protection on. What the fuck? Out of all the shit you could think to do to raise your kid's spirits, it's like you want to bring him to a fucking gun range. Come on, dude.
All right. What, if anything, do you see or notice in that video?
In the second one,
Yes.
it appeared he almost shot his hand on the during the video.
And why is that?
He had his hand in front of the muzzle of the firearm.
We'll take it,
Okay,
dude.
when you say
It's on the
he,
garlic.
you-
I'm sorry, the defendant, Mr. Crumbley's son.
Okay, the shooter.
Yes.
All right. Did you know, did James send those videos to anybody that day?
I don't recall if he sent them that day or the next day, but he did send them to Mrs. Crumbley at some point.
All right, and how do you know that?
I reviewed her cell phone as well.
Okay, and exhibit 174, can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, so that is one of the videos being sent on June 21st, 2021.
All right, and this is
Right, Ned?
There's 2 slides. Can you do this one? Okay. And then, is this the second video?
Yep, this is in the reverse order. So the first, they're both videos were sent from James Crumbley to Jennifer Crumbley on June 1st, 2021.
Okay, so these exhibits are him sending her the videos?
Yes.
All right, did you learn what she did with the videos, if anything?
Yes, she took one of the videos and uploaded it, I believe, as an Instagram story.
Okay, and that's exhibit 175.
Oh, she posted on Instagram. Wow. Yeah, in a movie they would call that foreshadowing, Jay.
In addition to
Foreshadowing.
Sure. It says Ethan, and it tags, I believe that's Mr. Crumbley's Instagram account. Both got handguns this week, testing them out at the range.
All right, and then
Testing them out,
now
Jay.
we're to drawing your attention to June 26th. Did they go to the gun range that day?
Yes.
Do you know where it was?
It was at so for the rest of these, I believe it's the indoor gun range in Clarkston, Michigan.
Okay, and exhibit 176, can you tell the jury what that is?
This is a receipt in the name of James Robert Crumbley
100%, Jimmy.
on June 26, 2021 for one range, handgun range fee of $20, and then one small silhouette target at 75 cents.
Do you know if the videos were taken on that day?
Yes,
Do you know if they were sent to anyone?
I do.
And who were they sent to?
Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay, drawing your attention to exhibit 177. What is that, if you know?
This is a video sent from James Crumbley to Jennifer Crumbley of the shooter at the firearms range in Clarkston on June 26th.
Okay. And is 178, which is admitted, I believe, is this the video that was taken and sent to Jennifer?
Yes, this is actually, I believe, is the Instagram story that was created from that video
Okay.
and uploaded to Instagram by Jennifer Crumbley.
Can you tell from the video which firearm he's using?
Yes, that's the Kel-Tec P17 22 caliber pistol.
Okay. Drawing your attention to July 2nd, did you uncover any evidence that James and his mother-in-law, Jennifer's mother, went to the range with the shooter?
Yes.
And how did you discover that?
So there were messages between James Crumbley and his mother-in-law on Facebook discussing a range visit. I think the conversation occurs on July 2nd, 2021, but it's actually for a range visit occurring on, I believe, July 3rd, 2021.
Okay, can you read that to the jury?
Sure. So in blue is going to be James Crumbley's mother-in-law. She says, still planning on taking the shooter to the gun range tomorrow morning. Then lunch, is he still available and do we need to make reservations? Mr. Crumbley responds, he is good, no reservations needed. I'll go with you guys. His mother-in-law replies, awesome, glad you could join us. We don't know what we are doing, LOL.
And
I
then
heard this is 377.
377. And then the next response from James.
Just take Maybe Road up to Dixie, turn left, and it will be on the right-hand side. The shooter will be excited. We will rent a few different guns. They have a special for 9mm on 25 for a box of 50. His mother-in-law replies, sounds great. Mr. Crumbley says, make it closer to 1045.
All right, and do we have any video from that day?
We do not.
Do we know who was there? Well, first, it's 179 and 180. What are those?
Those are receipts from July 25th. Those are not from that visit.
Okay, so now we're to July 25th.
Yes.
And what do those receipts show?
So on the left-hand side of the screen is looks like a purchase of ammunition for 6 boxes of 22 caliber ammunition for a total of $47.90 or $50.82 at the bottom. And then on the right, it's a range visit by Mr. Crumbley. It's a handgun range fee of $20, a small silhouette. I should mention that the receipt on the left also is in the name James Crumbley.
What's a silhouette mean?
It's a silhouette of a person that's used at a gun range.
Okay, and Exhibit 181, can you tell the jury what that is?
Yes, so this is geolocation information for the Gmail account for James Crumbley, and for, I believe he is in green on this, and then the purple dots would be Jennifer Crumbley, meeting on July 25th, 2021. Both
$10
Jennifer and
holla.
James Crumbley were at the
Miko
Firearm
Demas.
range in Clarkston, Michigan.
Okay, drawing your attention to August
So sweet.
15th.
Miko's awesome.
Exhibit 183.
Amazing.
This is a receipt. What is
Always
it for?
give her.
This is dated August 15th, 2021. The receipt has a range fee of $20 again. I believe that's so it'll be 200 rounds of 22 caliber ammunition and one small silhouette, again, a silhouette of a person target.
And 184, what is this?
This is James Crumbley's Gmail geolocation information showing he was at the Clarkston gun range at that time.
We love you, Miko.
And you were here for Edward
Thanks for
Groski's
popping
testimony,
in.
correct?
Yes.
All right. Did you see the video that the shooter sent to his friend in August of 2021?
I did.
All right. I'm going to put 70 and 71 up on the screen. That's one slide. First, what are we looking at?
So this is the first video filmed by the defendant's son on August 19th around 9:30 p.m. that was sent to his friend.
All right. And what time was it?
It was 9:31 p.m.
Okay. And can we see that video? Can we stop it? Okay, I'm stopping. Mr. Keese is stopping it. What are we looking at?
So this is the defendant's son holding the Kel-Tec P17 pistol. It doesn't appear to have a magazine inserted, didn't appear to have a round in the chamber. The safety was, again, red means dead. The safety was not engaged.
Okay, and can we continue? All right. Can you tell, based on, I should probably lay a better foundation. Were you ever inside the Crumbly home?
Yes.
When were you there?
On the night of November 30th, 2021, the night of the shooting, we executed the search warrant there.
Okay, so you were there during the search.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize anything in that video that signifies where the shooter was?
I do, but not from being in the residence. It was from other cell phone extractions from, I believe, Mrs. Crumbley and Mr. Crumbley's phones. I believe they changed couches in that living room at some point. It was a black leather couch that I recognized being in the living room.
Okay.
That's right, KT. Celebrate, man. Nothing
right,
is ever deleted
Exhibit
from your phone.
72 and 73, they've both been previously admitted. Can you tell the jury what this is?
This is the video that I believe Detective Groski had testified to previously. It was sent to the defendant's son's friend by the defendant's son on August 20th at 12:30 in the morning.
All right, and was there a text that accompanied this right after or before the video was sent?
Yes, it was around the time that the video was sent. I believe it said, my dad left it out, so I thought, why not? LOL. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if that's the exact text, but that's the general idea.
Jay, throw Phoenix Rising's comment up. It's closer to the bottom.
Is that the text?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
I would assume so.
And-
It would be crazy if they hadn't spoken to this buddy, right? Like,
Question, I don't know.
or the defense even. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, was there any follow up? Did he ever say anything? Did he actually talk to his? You know what I mean? Trying to like flesh out the story.
I
from the
bet
kid.
if there's any documents, Dizzy probably knows. If there's anything about it, Dizzy will know.
Well, that's 100%. If there's anything that exists in the world, Dizzy will know if it's been filed.
We're going to play the video, which has been previously admitted. And before we do, can you tell the jury what they're about to see?
Sure. So the defendant's son has the Kel-Tec P17 pistol in his hand. Again, the safety's not engaged. He
Thank you,
slams the
Malcolm.
firearm down on top of the magazine, loads
Those
the magazine,
comments mean
and then
a ton to me.
charges, sends the slide forward, chambering around into the firearm, meaning that if he pulled the trigger at that moment, it would go off.
Okay.
Thank you, Mama Marketo. Like comments like those two right there, Malibu and Mama Marketo, like mean everything to me.
What do you see in that picture besides the Caltech?
Appears to be a cat.
And based on your investigation, do you know about that cat?
I believe that's the shooter's cat, Dexter.
All right, and what surface is that? Can you tell?
Yes. So after being in the home for the search warrant, I'm aware that is their kitchen. Really didn't have a kitchen area. It was more their living room or dining room table, so to speak. It was a higher kind of four-top table. That is the same wood grain that's on the table in their dining room.
All right, and we know this was taken at 12:30 a.m. Is that what you said?
I believe it was sent at 12:30, but I think it was taken relatively close to that time.
Okay. Do you hear anything else in the background?
All I heard was crickets and then the sound of the magazine and then the slide going forward.
Okay, and we previously introduced the GPS data that shows whether or not James Crumbley was in the home during this time. Was he?
He was.
Okay.
Aww, family hug.
All right, I just want to talk to me about
Meg,
this
I
video,
do, and you know we think
Special
you're
Agent
awesome
Brandon,
too.
And
We adore you.
and what your view is on whether or not what was happening in that video was safe.
So I would say that regardless if Mr. Crumbley was standing over his shoulder or not, that would not be safe. The firearm is on top of a dining room table. It's loaded, the safety's off, and it's pointed in a direction that if you're inside their home, you can't tell from the video whether he's facing the front of the home or the side of the home. But regardless, the firearm's pointed in a direction that would be almost chest level if a person was beyond the walls of the house or if a person was standing nearby. Not to mention almost, pointing the firearm at the cat.
All right. That's the magazine. Can you tell if it's loaded or not?
Yes, that magazine there, you can see the rounds of ammunition in the firearm.
All right, and you said, could you see whether there was a round in the chamber?
I don't believe there was until he loaded the magazine and then sent the slide forward, or else it was malfunction.
Okay, where's he loading? That's loading the magazine. Is that's the safety?
Yep, so the safety's not engaged and the round is, the top of the magazine is visible there. And once he sends that slide forward, that's what takes that round and puts it into the chamber.
Okay. What if that was being supervised by somebody like James? Would it change your opinion of the safety of that action?
No, so based on what we spoke about before being the 4 rules of firearm safety. So obviously that firearm is loaded, so treat every firearm like it's loaded. Point it in a safe direction. So there's really no safe direction for that firearm to be if it's chest level on a table. The only safe position would be whether it was outside or pointed at the floor. Obviously if you're loading a firearm to carry on your person, you point it at the floor where it's away from people so it can't hurt anyone if it discharged.
Okay. I want to draw your attention to September 1st. Did the defendant, did James take his son to the shooting range on that day?
Your Honor, I'm just going to ask for clarification. September 1st of what year?
2021. The weapons weren't purchased until June 2021 and November 2021.
Yes, I believe that's correct, yes.
All right, and Exhibit 185, what is that?
It says, it's a Facebook message from James Crumbly to Jennifer Crumbly, and it says, the shooter and I are headed to the gun range.
And Exhibit 186 and 187.
Those are receipts from the gun range in Clarkston, both in James Crumbly's name. The one on the left is for range time. It's like 200 rounds of 22 caliber ammunition, 2 silhouette targets, and then a rental of a 22 caliber revolver. And then on the right-hand side is 1 50-round box of 22 caliber ammunition.
Did James take a video of his son that day?
Yes.
And how do you know?
It was located on James Crumbly's phone.
And that's Exhibit 188?
Yes.
All right, we're going to play that.
Ugh. Oh, Malibu. I love to read that. That's great.
All right. On
Oh, these
September
videos are so
25th
disturbing, dude.
of 2021,
Really,
did you
they
come
really,
to
really
learn
are.
that James took his
Just thinking of that's the
son for
sound that
gun
they
that
heard,
day?
Yes.
and that's scary.
And this is exhibit 189. What's that receipt for?
So it's a receipt again in the name.
And like what that kid
Crumbly.
was envisioning when he was
range-
shooting right
range
there,
fee,
you know.
a rental of a 9mm pistol, 9mm ammunition, 22 caliber ammunition, as well as a torso, black torso target.
We get it,
All right,
Mystic.
And
We'll miss you.
do you know if that was a SIG?
That was not. It was a 9mm HK VP9.
Okay. Is there a video of that day?
Yes. So the actual gun range surveillance video. This was the furthest back for the range visits that we could get due to the footage writing over itself. So September 25th was the first date that we actually could get footage from the gun range in Clarkston.
All right, and this is 190. We're going to play that. And what are we looking at here?
So this is at the gun range in Clarkston. This is outside of the shooting area. This is where you pay for targets, ammunition, rent firearms. In the white sweatshirt is Mr. Crumbly wearing the looks like a Seattle Seahawks ball cap, and then you have the shooter wearing a gray sweatshirt, dark colored pants, Nike shoes, and a black hat.
And what do you observe James Crumbley wearing at his belt level?
Appears to be a holster.
It is Malibu.
And can you tell the jury what you're observing?
So at some point, it looks like the shooter was trying to clear a malfunction from the firearm. He's checking the chamber to see if the round's chambered. He's having some kind of malfunction with it, and he is having trouble clearing it.
And can you tell what firearm that is?
The footage here is real grainy. I can't say for certain.
And what does he appear to be doing right at this time?
So he keeps checking the chamber for a round. He's having issues with it. He goes over to to Mr. Crumbly. They walk back over. Mr. Crumbly picks up the firearm. He racks the slide 3 times to try to see what's going on with the firearm, and then he inserts the magazine here and gets the firearm back in operating condition.
Shannon posted the side by side of Grandpa Munster next to that Fed on Twitter.
All right.
It's awesome.
What is the relative price difference between the 9mm ammunition and 22 ammunition?
So just generally speaking, a 9mm ammunition is more expensive than 22 caliber ammunition. 22 caliber ammunition is more for target practice, and
Hey, Rabbit.
9mm ammunition be used for anything from target practice to home defense. It's generally more expensive for 9mm ammunition.
And when you say more expensive, can you roughly say about how much generally?
Honestly,
Objection to relevance, Your Honor.
Yeah, what's the relevance?
The relevance is that 9mm ammunition is expensive, and it's typically not something that you would buy just to shoot at the range, particularly if this is your hobby. It's expensive.
Burn.
That calls for speculation, Your Honor.
Well, unless he knows, unless he knows.
Is 9mm ammunition, because of the cost, is it something that you typically see at a range?
people generally
miss you,
people
Miss
do shoot
Shorty.
9mm
Thanks for
ammunition
hanging.
at the range. Now, what level of money they're willing to pay for that type of ammunition all varies depending on if you're going to shoot at the range. Obviously, you're going to try to use less expensive ammunition, but that'd be speculating anything beyond that.
Okay, thank you. Drawing your attention to October 3rd, was there evidence uncovered that James and his son went to the range on that day?
Yes.
And Exhibit 191, that's a Facebook message.
Yes, this is from James Crumbley to Jennifer Crumbley on October 3rd at 12:01 p.m. It says, "Cool, just got cleaning our guns, leaving for range in a few."
All right, and then 192 is a receipt. Is it from that day?
Yes, it's from October 3rd, 2021, in the name James Robert Crumbley. It's for a silhouette target, a range fee. I believe that's 100 rounds of 22 caliber ammunition, and then an additional, looks like an additional 2 boxes of 22 caliber ammunition.
All right. Drawing your attention now to November 26th of 2021, you testified earlier that you were involved in the tracing of the weapon and the purchase of it on that day, correct?
Yes,
All right. And was that 9mm SIG purchased on that day?
yes,
I'm showing you previously admitted 37 and 38. We talked about this. What are these?
this is the receipt from the gun store in Oxford for the Sig Sauer SP 2022 9mm pistol that was sold to James Crumbley.
All right, and the cost?
It was the gun itself was $489.95 with tax. It was a total of $519.35.
All right, and 38 is what?
This is the pistol sales record that would have been completed by the gun store and signed by Mr. Crumbley, documenting his purchase of the Sig Sauer pistol.
And were you able to, or did you review any posts that the shooter made with this firearm purchased for him?
Yes.
All right, and I want to draw your attention to Exhibit 95, and there are 3 slides here. What's the first one?
So the first one, so the text for the post was November 26th, says, "Just got my new beauty today, Sig Sauer 9mm. Ask any questions, I will answer." It's a picture in the Crumbley's kitchen. It's hard to see from this photograph, but there's you see yellow and then some wood floor underneath it. That's the counters in their kitchen.
So I'm holding the box, so this would be showing through this handle with the circle?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, and that is the Sig Sauer SP 2022 purchased by James Crumbley.
all right, and then the second slide?
This is a picture of the defendant's son holding the Sig Sauer SP 2022 in the Crumbley family residence. That's the same floor inside their house.
And it's a post?
Yes,
All right, and it says,
it's the same. So the same text appears in all 3 photographs, but there's the second. There's the first photograph of just the firearm, second of Mr. Crumbley or Mr. Crumbley's son holding the firearm, and then the third picture, I believe, is the Mr. Crumbley's son lining up the sights. So on a firearm, there's the rear sights and the front sights, and when you line those up, that's what you're shooting at. That's what you use to aim, and that's where those 3 dots are aligned. That's Mr. Crumbley's son pointing the firearm at the floor inside their residence.
all right. Drawing your attention to 97, Exhibit 97. This is, where was this photo found?
This was found on Jennifer Crumbley's cell phone. It depicts the top firearm where you see the red dot again is the Keltec SP, the P17, and then the bottom firearm is the murder weapon. It's the Sig Sauer SP 2022. This is all inside of the Sig Sauer box. You see the two Sig magazines on the right side of the screen, plus the ATF pamphlet and the cable lock provided by Sig Sauer.
Okay. Anything stand out to you about this picture?
As far as,
The ATF
well,
pamphlet?
the pamphlet obviously is on top of the foam in this picture, and the cable lock is still in the box with the Sig Sauer. Obviously, it was later recovered in the Keltec box, not in the box with the Sig Sauer.
All right, and in addition to the ATF pamphlet, is there anything else posted at the gun store about safety?
Yes, so behind the counter in the gun store in Oxford is the same 4 bullet points that are on the inside left cover of that ATF Youth Handgun Safety Act. It hangs behind the counter.
All right,
Whatever, that's 193.
yes, it's 193. All right. This is okay. All right, this is exhibit 42. What is this?
That is the cable lock that was provided with the Sig Sauer pistol.
All right, and is this cable lock is specifically provided with the SIG, with this actual gun?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and looking at this, I'm gonna hand it to you now.
Can I get another pair of gloves? It's getting a little hot up here.
I know, I took mine off too.
Is it getting hot in here?
Yeah.
It's climbing.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
I don't know if those are the small ones.
That's it. Definitely smaller ones this time.
Sorry,
Sorry.
sorry, I do have the bigger ones. And then I'm gonna ask you to tell the jury whether or not you think this has ever been opened.
So I would say, is it possible that this top part has been opened? Yes. If this was used consistently and pulled out of this packaging, there'd be more tearing on the side. It's cheap plastic packaging.
All right, and what's inside of it at the bottom?
So there's the instruction manual in here, as well as the 2 keys that are still inserted in the cable.
Okay, and your testimony is this is provided with, I'm gonna take this back. This was provided with the SIG when it was purchased on November 26th, correct?
Yes.
And where was this found in the home when you searched it on November 30th, 2021?
That was in the Keltec box in the kitchen.
All right, so it was found not in the SIG box?
No.
So the Caltech box, which is somewhere here.
Underneath the SIG box.
Okay. So the SIG cable lock was found with the Caltech. Where was the Caltech?
The Keltec box is in the kitchen.
Okay, but the Caltech, the weapon, was in the gun safe?
That's correct, yeah. The Keltec pistol was in the gun safe in the Crumbley's bedroom.
Okay, so this was found open or closed?
That was closed.
All right, and did you testify earlier this was found in a cabinet in the kitchen?
I believe it was a cabinet or like a little space in the kitchen underneath, like an island or whatever.
Okay, and if we go back to the picture that Jennifer Crumbly posted, same cable lock?
Yes.
Okay. On November 27th, drawing your attention to exhibit 195, what is that?
That is a receipt from the range in the name Jennifer Lynn Crumbly for November 27, 2021. It's for pistol range visit, 1 target, and 2 boxes of Patriot Defense 9mm 124 grain ammunition at $23 or almost $24 a box.
Okay, so 4 days earlier when the gun was purchased, is there a video of that,
Yes.
the purchase of the gun? On the 20th?
Is there a video of the purchase of the gun? No, the gun store did not have footage for that day.
Okay, so, but this is the 27th, the next day. Is that a Saturday?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and is there a video from that?
Yes, there was footage at the gun range in Clarkson. There was not footage at the gun store in Oxford.
Okay, and do you've heard all the testimony before, were you able to determine where James Crumbly was on this day, on a Saturday when when Jennifer and the shooter went to the range?
Yes, he was working that day doing DoorDash deliveries for most of the day.
Okay. All right, it's exhibit 196. I'm gonna play this and the first part of it and stop for a moment at the counter and then move to I think, just a section at the end, because it's long. So
Sure.
just wanted to let everyone know. Okay, so what are we looking at right now?
So the woman holding the pistol case, that's a 6-hour pistol case. That's Jennifer Crumbley. Behind her is the shooter wearing that gray sweatshirt and sweatpants and black shoes.
I don't blame him, hey Mona. It's nice to have a choice, though. Kids, they don't get to choose.
Now, she's paying for what, if you know?
So right now, I think she just handed him her license.
Okay,
Based on the receipts for this visit, he said there was the target, 2 boxes of 9mm ammunition, and then the range visit itself.
all right. Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. What is he doing?
He made it 2 with his hand.
All right, and how many boxes of ammo did they actually purchase?
2.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. It sounds like the prosecution is asking Agent Brandon to speculate as to what the number 2 could be. There are also 2 people there. There could be 2 sets of ear protection. It could be 2 targets. It could be 2 of anything. She's asking for speculation.
That goes to weight, not admissibility.
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
You don't know what he was referring to, there's no sound.
I don't. If you play the video and it continues, we'll see what happens next.
Okay. And if you know what is happening now?
He's picking up the targets and 2 boxes of ammunition. He's ringing the 2 boxes of ammunition up now.
And how much were the 2 boxes of ammunition for 9mm? A 9mm.
I don't recall. It'll be on the previous slide for the receipt, but I think it was around $24.
$24 total or 24 for each box?
I believe it was 24 for each box.
Okay.
If only they would have followed Chris Rock's little bit. $5,000 a bullet.
All right,
Need
we're going
gun
to
control,
now go to
bullet control.
what happens
Yeah.
after they leave here.
So they pay for their range visit. They get their firearm or the ammunition, the targets. They then proceed to go put ear protection on and walk into the range and begin to load magazines and then take turns firing the weapon.
All right, and we're gonna go to the segment where they're actually firing the weapon. Okay, what's happening here?
So in the back, the shooter is loading ammunition into the magazines. At one point during the video, Mrs. Crumbley does help load at least a couple rounds of ammunition as well into the magazines, and then they proceed to take turns shooting the firearm.
All right, and that's, we're gonna speed to a part. Is there some point where he's, you're observing him instructing or trying to help his mother?
Yes.
All right. Okay, what are we seeing here?
So this is one of the times that the shooter shot the murder weapon. He sends the target downrange, loads the magazine into the firearm, and then discharges it several times.
It's a good question, Todd. I have no idea why they're showing this.
Now, as far as you know, in terms of looking at all the evidence, is that the first time he's fired that weapon, if you know?
Yes, based on all the evidence I was able to locate, this is the first time, yes.
100% B Rabbit. Great comment. He is young, Lisa. It's a kid.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Debbie with the $10 holla.
Okay, we're going to jump ahead to, does Jennifer Crumbley ever fire a weapon?
Yes, she takes, I think, 2 total turns firing the weapon, I believe.
God, what is going through that kid's mind right now, dude?
I'll tell you what, it's not hunting animals. Like, a lot of people will give the argument, well, it's a hunting town. This gun, this isn't for hunting. Like,
this is not a hunting gun, man.
This is not for hunting. Like,
what must be going through his mind?
And what are you observing?
This is 3 days before.
3 days,
The shooter's
man.
instructing his mother how to load a magazine and chamber around. Right now he's pointing to the slide release, telling her how to send the slide forward and chamber around from that magazine in the firearm.
He's teaching his mom.
How many rounds, if you know, did they fire that day?
I believe it was a total of 50. There was 2
Oh,
boxes.
he definitely had a plan, Bugaboo. Like his journal.
Do you know
Watch that
how many
Miller hearing. It's
she fired versus
so disturbing.
I don't know the exact number. I know that it was significantly more for the shooter than his mother.
Okay, do you know, how do you know that they left with one full box?
So at the end of the video, the shooter packages up the 6-hour pistol case, and then
9mm for shooting people. Period.
Crumbly takes the box as they leave, and the shooter walks out carrying the box.
Not animals.
Okay, and we're gonna fast forward to that part.
Every handgun is for shooting people, not animals. Maybe a squirrel.
Do you see any, can you, in watching this video, is it visible, the actual case?
Yes.
And do you see a lock or the ATF pamphlet?
No, not during this video, no.
Okay. And is that the SIG case?
It is.
No, Mandy. Squirrels must die. Little bastards. Seems that way, B-Rabbit.
Now, was he permitted to carry that
Their
gun
only
out
bonding
of the
experience was
range?
going to a gun shooting range.
So there would be nothing barring him with his mother's supervision right there for carrying the firearm, no.
Okay. And what about the ammo?
Same with the ammo.
Okay. And we see later, he's packaging it up?
Yes.
Okay. And we see later them leaving and who's carrying what?
So right now he's trying to figure out how to fit all the magazines and the firearm in the pistol case. He eventually is successful in doing so, closes the clamps on the firearm case. His mother walks out with it, and he walks out with the ammunition.
Okay. And if you know, how many rounds did he take to the school that day?
I believe there was a total of 50 based on the number of rounds discharged being 32 and the rounds recovered.
Ned, I hate that story you just
we talked
put
about
in
the
the chat.
cable lock that was sold with the SIG. If it had been installed in that firearm, about how long does that take to install a cable lock?
I mean, if the slide's already to the rear of the firearm and the magazine port and the ejection port are visible, it would take under 10 seconds.
Okay. I want to lastly draw your attention to Exhibit 130. What's
My
that?
squirrels
So
and
this
are
is an
not
Instagram
sweet.
post by the
They
defendant's
eat their
son,
way into our
One
house
right?
Jeez.
repeatedly.
by the defendant's son, after returning from the shooting range. Took my new SIG out to the range today. Definitely need to get used to the new sights. LOL.
Oh,
and
God.
a picture of its target.
All right. And this is a post that Jennifer Crumbly posted that day?
Yes, that same day, mom and son day, testing out his new Xmas present. My first time shooting a 9mm, I hit the bullseye.
And this is just a different picture with the same post?
Yes, I believe she had 3 photographs with her post, including the 6 hour on the kitchen counter with the ATF pamphlet underneath.
And do you see a cable up?
I do not.
Okay. Moving to exhibit 130.
Our squirrels
This is
eat
the
their
map
way
we're
through the
seeing.
wood
Yes.
of our
Did you have
fascia
an
boards
opportunity during your investigation to
and
look
take
at
residence in
Yes.
our attic.
this? And what caught your attention, if anything, at this? With this
They're not
drawing?
cute or
The
sweet.
very first thing I noticed
Or
was that
smart.
there was an apparent shooting victim on the drawing. Whether
Well, they
it
might
was
be
a fatal
smart.
shooting, not fatal shooting, I'm not certain, but clearly when I looked at it, it's not a suicide.
Anything else?
Yes, so the firearm that was drawn on the piece of paper, after reviewing the murder weapon, I noted several similarities between the two and believed that this was actually a drawing of the murder weapon.
And what was similar?
So on the back of the murder weapon, there are striations or lines on the slide of the firearm.
It's true, Dave.
Additionally, the shape of it's the trigger guard, so it's the part where the trigger is housed in. It's that kind of a
Allison's very
say
allergic to
like a
cats.
half
So.
U shape, where the trigger's inside of, as well as where the ejection port is, and most notably the magazine. So the bottom of that firearm, you see how it's not flush, how there's basically 2 parts there. That part on the Sig Sauer magazines, there's like a lip that's different than other firearms.
Oh God, we're
It
talking
shows
about
how
the
it kinda, like,
accuracy
curves
of the
down.
gun that he drew on his math
All right,
test.
next I'm
Like,
going
yep,
to,
Come on, dude.
what about is there a picture of any ammo on that drawing?
That might
Yes,
be
there's
pure
a
dizzy.
picture of ammunition. It's definitely a pistol caliber ammunition. It's definitely not 22 caliber ammunition. It does
Radar with a
appear to be
good tip.
9mm round ammunition,
Mothballs.
which resemble
Hmm.
one.
Okay, and next I'm showing you exhibits previously admitted, 97, 101, and 130. What are we looking at?
So those are pictures of the murder weapon on either side. You can see the markings I was talking about, the striations on the back of the slide of the firearm, the shape of the magazine, especially when you look on the picture on the right. You see how it's not a flat shape. It doesn't sit flush with the
Oh
firearm.
God.
How there's different
What is the
levels there.
relevance of this?
Additionally, the location of the ejection port and
Objection.
the shape of that trigger guard, again, that
Relevance.
half kind of U shape there.
And Special Agent Brandon, my last question is, what was your impression when you viewed that drawing?
My impression when I viewed the drawing,
Yes.
Kid likes guns.
that he drew his firearm.
And the entire drawing, what was your conclusion or what were your impressions through your investigation?
Who cares?
What was the
Relevance.
drawing up?
It's after the fact.
He drew a murder.
Thank you. Nothing further. Can you take a break at this time, Ryan? I think the jury's probably.
Sure you need a break. Right, Ms. Bennett? Would you
Yes,
like a
sir.
break from the
Yes,
class?
please, Jordan, thank you.
Right. Okay, I have asked about the heat, but this is.
Young Grandpa Munster, you may step down. Do not discuss your testimony with anybody outside the courtroom, please, sir.
You can step down, please don't discuss your testimony with them.
Yes,
All right? Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
I hear what you're saying, Sarah, but he said, "Help me." I can't stop the thoughts. Like I don't even care about the pictures on the math test. It's the words that like just sway me, not the pictures. The pictures are all disturbing. Clearly, a kid or a person shot with blood pouring out of them. You know, the gun. All the pictures are bad, but the words, man, the words. They just have to be a. I mean, if you get handed that and you choose to ignore it, this is where you end up in the future. Just so you know, we're on notice, parents. Pay attention to your kids.
The thing that strikes me, and I know, I always say this, like I've never touched a gun, I've never held a gun, I'm just not a gun guy, but like the acceptance of like this woman is taking her 16-year-old son, and like no one blinks an eye in the shooting. Like we're just accepting this is our society. no one blinks an eye that this kid just has a handgun and he's practicing shooting. Like, shouldn't like maybe it'd be like 18 or 21 before kids could even, but whatever, it's it's a hunting town. He's not hunting. And then like she's posting it to Instagram and like people are gonna like that. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like that's the culture we're in. They're like, yeah, that's awesome. You took your 15-year-old to shoot. Like to me, it's just
me too. I mean, same.
Mind-boggling.
I had to like argue with Allison to get squirt guns in the summer. I mean, we're just not gun people, and there's lots of people that are, and I mean, that's their right. It's just not how we choose to operate over here. But and I'm not sweating them. And I think that most avid gun owners are very serious about gun safety. I think that they're very serious about keeping their guns locked up. They understand that they're incredibly dangerous to have around kids, and and then you get the Crumbleys of the world, and that's where the problem comes in. And that's why you have to have laws, because not everybody does what they're supposed to do. And if you don't have some teeth out there in the form of laws that will lay the hammer down on parents that aren't doing what they should be doing if they're going to have weapons with children. I mean, it's not just school shootings, it's everything. Kids getting the guns, shooting themselves, shooting their little friends. It's it's
like preschoolers and kindergartners and first graders going to school with guns. Like it's
crazy. It's crazy, dude. It's unacceptable in my world. I don't.
I saw someone commented something that I thought was a good, excellent point, that like that was his time to spend time with his parents. Because from what I've seen so far, I didn't see the first trial. Seems like they were more interested in their fucking horses than they were with him. So like this was his time to that he.
Yeah, they spent a ton of time on the first trial just trying to show how Jennifer, who clearly had the more verbal relationship with the kid, meaning that, I think he texted her back and forth way more than he texted his father, and the way that the state attacked that was by putting on all the evidence about the affair and her horse hobby, and how that those two things took up all of her time, and she didn't have any time for her kid. With him, it's a different story, which is why we're focusing more on the purchase of the weapon itself. And, like I'm assuming that's why they're showing these videos, to just establish that, look, and I think it was that comment that you were talking about was it B Rabbit? I gotta find it.
I think it might have been, yeah.
Yeah, she had a couple of great comments. You posted one of them, but yeah, it's like, you don't spend any time with your kid, and the activity that you choose on the rare occasion when you do is to bring him to a gun shooting range. It's heartwarming, Jay. It's a heartwarming tale.
And per, we don't have confirmation, but per the messages Ethan is sending his friends, he's telling before months before actually I think it was in March, and then in June is when he's first going on the range. In March, he's like, I can't, telling his friends, I can't stop his friend, I can't stop these thoughts. And then he's like, my dad just told me to take a pill and shut up, basically. So if you are to believe his messages to his friend, which I do, he's telling his fucking parents he's having issues, he can't handle it, and they're still their response is, let's get a gun, let's go to the range, you'll feel better, let's shoot some targets or something.
Yeah, I mean, what came out in Jennifer's trial was that, when they were bringing up, they were putting into evidence text messages between Ethan and his mother, when they're out, and he's like, oh, there's a demon in the kitchen and it's throwing bowls and I don't know what to do, I can't stop it. And and she decides to pawn that off on him just being Ethan. It's just Ethan being Ethan, that we bought a 100-year-old home, and Ethan has always thought that it was haunted, and he'd be down in the basement with his Ouija board, so it's like that was kind of her way of dismissing what was clearly an actual issue with him, and choosing not to do anything about it by just completely dismissing it as, him just being silly with the haunted house thing. And you know, with dad, it's different. That's what I'm saying. Like this is a different case in terms because remember, and I was going to ask Dizzy to email you the statute so we could throw it up. But when we get to the jury instructions, they'll throw it up. You know, in terms of what they have to prove in court in order to get the conviction. And you know, when we get to the statutes, you know, I'll point out there's elements to every crime, which I was explaining like during the openings, Jay, that, you know, the reason that we had to go through, and it sounds like it was truncated, it was a much shorter version of the shootings themselves, you know, was to establish that these were in fact human beings and that they in fact lost their lives. That's a part of the statute, even under involuntary manslaughter. So they had to prove that up in court. And then, you know, but the thing that they're really trying to prove up, which they will be getting to in short order, you know, is the fact that, and they're doing it, and it's not as obvious with James, you know, in the sense that, like I was saying, it seemed like the communication between Ethan and his mother was more prevalent than with James and his kid, you know, in terms of knowing or should have known, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, to be honest with you, I know why the state's doing it, but that math test, man, and I know I keep talking about it, but I'm just telling you, in the eyes of the law, that's all you need. Like you don't need anything beyond that. Like that math test is like if I were the state and doing the closing, I'd just stick that thing up on the Elmo and just tell the jury, I want you to look at that for 5 minutes. I'm not going to say a word. And if that was your child that had written that, what would you do? Would you leave your kid at school? You know, and no reasonable person would ever say yes. No reasonable person could ever answer that question yes. Like I don't care what the school counselor or the dean is saying to me at all at that point, you know? I mean, like it's falling on deaf ears. Like at that point, I don't even want to be wasting time in the office with them, hearing them. You know, they're not, you know, they're not involved in my kid's life in the sense that they're going to have any deep thoughts about what's going on with him. I need to get him out of there, and I need to get him alone, and I need to talk to my kid and find out what's going on. Like, and just keep prying like that. This isn't a conversation that if I'm handed that paper that he's going to be able to weasel his way out with some bullshit. Like, you know, oh, it's a game design. Oh yeah. Okay. No, it's not. Help me is not a game design. I can't stop the thoughts is not a game design. You know, the world means nothing. And whatever the other shit that he writes, those are all absolute cries for help that simply cannot be ignored. And when they're ignored and 4 beautiful little kids, teenagers lose their lives, they're going to pay for it. You know, I mean, and to me, it's the way that this should go down. You know, we have to have responsibility for the kids that we're raising and putting out into society. And there's got to be accountability for that. And, you know, if you're opposed to that, then that speaks volumes to me about how involved you are with your children. Because any parent that's involved with their children would there is no counter argument to me. Like no one is ever going to convince me otherwise that there's another way that kids should be raised. You know, we have to be present in their lives. We have to make an effort to know what's going on with them. We have to be attentive. We have to recognize when things are going on with them emotionally. And it's not that hard to do, you know? I mean, I realize, you know, my family, we're all hard on your sleeve people, you know? So like, you know, immediately when somebody's bothered in my family, like I know when there's something going on with my 17-year-old, I just know it, you know, I go to her immediately. I'm like, what's up? You know, is it a boy problem? Like, what's the issue? You know? And it took a while. Like, you know, I'd say from like 15 to 17, she's like, nothing's wrong. You know, no matter how much I was hounding her. and then I'd get her to kind of give me something. But now, because of my persistence, like she talks to me like fully, which is amazing for me. I wanted that always from all my kids from the time that they were born, was to be open and honest with them. And, I want them to know that they can talk to me about anything, and that it's not a ramification thing. It's not that there's not going to be negative impact if they tell me something that they've done wrong, or something that they're feeling that they may construe as not being okay. This wasn't that, and it's never been that for me. It's always been, I want you to know that I'm a safe space for you. I'm your port. I'm your lighthouse. You can always count on me, for anything. And if your kids don't know that, you're failing them. It's that simple. I mean, life is crazy. We all know how life brutal is. Life is brutal. And, you don't know that until you start going through it, that it's gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. And that, you're never up too long before something knocks you back down. That's the nature of life, and as soon as you can let your kids know that's what's up, you're doing them, a huge favor and a huge service in terms of them moving forward through their lives, and it's like, I guess maybe all parents aren't like that. I'm just a very open book with my kids because, I guess when I think about it, my dad wasn't necessarily like that with me, which probably spurred me on to really, going into parenthood, being like, you know what? I want to try to be nothing like my dad was with me. I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to tell my kids that I love them 50 times a day. I'm going to hug them constantly, to the point where they're like embarrassed when I'm trying to give them the kiss, getting out of the car at school, all that shit. I don't care. They need to know how much I love them, and they do. Consequently, like my kids have zero doubt exactly how much I love them, and that I would step in front of a train for any of them without a thought. I mean, they know that. And that's how I think you raise well-rounded, confident kids, and that's not to say that they're not going to have the issues that we all have, because life is brutal, but you try to arm them with, with the tools for them to be able to deal with just the brutality of life, and school's hard, man. This kid was like a loner. He had one homie, and that kid moved, and like when you start to see some of the stuff that was going on, I'm not so sure that his parents didn't move him away because of the shit that Ethan was telling him and texting him. It's like, it's just one of those things where, the kid was just spiraling. And then coming out of COVID, and COVID was such a weird time. It was like that, like we never went through anything even remotely close to that, like during our childhood, like where the world shut down. And, like what I did is I packed my family up and went out to Arizona for 3 months and rented Airbnb so they could swim every day, because I was finding cheap ass Airbnbs because nobody was doing it. And, and I wanted them to be outside, and consequently for me, I loved COVID because I'll never get to spend as much time with my kids as I did during that year period, man. It was like, what a gift it was for me. They shut the courts down. I was writing, and I just got to spend all this time with my kids that you just typically don't get to spend, like once they're school age. Once school age hits, man, it's like Scarlett just now started, like in the past like week, not waking me up. Like I typically would wake her up, but she has to be the bus by like 6:58 in the morning. It's crazy. So I'm like, oh, if I don't pop awake, wake me up, because I like to walk her to the bus. She's my last one. And, even though we're in a very safe area, it's still, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy spending that time and giving her a hug and a kiss. And now she's in 6th grade, and I knew that was coming to an end. And like the last week, she hasn't been waking me up. Like I'll get up in 7 and she's like gone and sad, you know? So it's like, I don't know, man. This is a sad case. It's such a sad case all around.
And I totally agree with all your points. But I also think, like, not only did they not give a shit about their kid, they did not give a shit about anyone's kid and did not think about anything but themselves. For them to know that their kid, like, I'm just trying to put, I obviously would never buy a gun. I just wouldn't for my kids. I wouldn't. But, you know, if I go in and I see that test, not only, like, where's the thought for them to think about everyone else's kid in that moment? They clearly don't give a fuck about Ethan, right? But, like, they know Ethan has a gun. Like, how could they not check for the gun? They were like, he didn't even sign in yet. Why not check it? Like, we already talked about this. Check his fucking bag. But if like didn't have a second thought to think, holy shit, he's drawing this. He might shoot up someone else's kid. My kid might be responsible for the death of someone else's kid. I'm gonna fucking make sure. I'm gonna go and check for the gun. Like, they could not give a fuck. He went on DoorDash. She went and did whatever she did. They didn't have a second thought to think about someone else in this situation, another kid that could get killed, which happened because they just didn't give a fuck. They didn't give a shit about anyone else. Like, for them to go back and just resume their day, let alone, like, we already established, they don't give a fuck about either. But to me, it's just like, if I saw that, I mean, I would just be like, oh my God, my kid is drawing about shooting other kids, and I know he has a gun. I better go fucking check and just make sure. Like, maybe he's okay.
And beyond that, you're taking your fucking kid out of school.
Well, yeah, I know.
Fuck checking for the gun. You're taking your fucking kid. By the time you get home and realize that the gun's gone, it's too late. You are taking your fucking kid out of school right then, right there. Period. End of conversation. No one, like I get it. He drove by the house 4 times. I don't give a shit. His kid should have been with him in the fucking car. Period. They should have been having the conversation. What is going on with you, man? Like, what is this? Help. Like, how can I help you? Talk to me, please. I'm begging you. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you. I'll do anything that you need. Like, I'm here. I love you. Please tell me what's going. You know what I mean? Like, that's the shit that needed to happen. That's what saves the lives. Like, help me. 2 words. Help me. That's it, Jay. They're like, to me, there's nothing else. They're like, I don't give a shit about any of the rest of it. Forget about them not checking for the guns. They should have had the backpack out of the school because it came with them in the car with Ethan driving home, period. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
like, to me, it's that simple. Like, to me, it's that simple. Like, there is no circumstance in the world in which I'm leaving my kid at school on that day. Ever. To me, that's 100% why he's culpable. Not that he didn't run back and check the gun safe to see if the gun was in there. It's because he left his kid in that school. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. And let's say this is the exact same situation. He never bought his kid a gun. He had no idea his kid had a gun. We're still think they come back 100% guilty just because he looks at that test. And, like, this is a family that has no idea. There's no taking them to the shooting range. They didn't buy him a gun. They had no idea, but they see that test and they walk out. Do you think it's the same, or it's
tougher?
Like, I mean, buying them that gun, like, they knew. I know.
It's like the Columbine shit. You know, like, that was always the thing with the early school shootings. I'm like, where the fuck are they getting all these guns? Like Klebold and the other kid, like, they had an armory when they walked into Columbine. You know, this wasn't just like a single handgun. And I'm like, where, like, even back then, when I first, like, when that case broke that day, I'll never forget it. I was sitting in there, I was like, oh my God. You know, it was like, I'd never heard of anything like this. Like, we had had like, you know, the post office shootings. You remember back when it was like, that was the shit that was like, postal workers were going nuts, working in that.
They were losing it. Yeah.
Like, and that was the thing that was the first kind of like mass shootings that I became aware of as being like kind of a consistent issue. And then when that happened, I'm like, the first thing I'm like, where are the parents? Like, how are these, like, what are these kids doing in order to gather an armory of weapons under their parents' noses? And the parents are completely oblivious to it. But I don't know, man. That's like a great question. I mean, either way, like, me knowing I purchased a gun, and Kristen, they're on break.
Break. I'm checking, guys. Trust me, we're not gonna. It's not gonna go back, and they're on break. We're good.
Yeah. So like for me, I just like, I think I'm still finding them guilty because of the fact that the kid is begging for help. Like I just can't assume that he does or doesn't have a gun. And like, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. But like my kid's not going to be at school that day.
I still think your point stands. I still think.
Well, yeah, like
stands that you see that test, you're going to take them out. But like
my kid's out of school, like 100%.
Yeah,
like
right.
Whether he has a gun or not, whether I just bought him a gun or not, my kid's out of school. So I've circumvented the school shooting, even if he's unwittingly to me, like gotten hold of a gun. You know what I mean? Like I've prevented that from happening, or I've prevented, it's like the writing on that is so evident. I just, I can't stop the thoughts. Help me. It's blood everywhere. It's like you can't ignore
and again,
that.
it's the society we live in. This isn't pre-Columbine where like this happened and you're like, holy shit, someone could shoot up school. It's happening every fucking day. Like to me, that is not a red flag to everyone who sees it. It's like,
well, that's 100%. Like we cannot pretend that the society that we live in doesn't exist. This case isn't in a vacuum. This case is very much front and center of exactly the world that we live in. And this is deep into it. This is, 597 school shootings in, this one being like 598. Like we can't act like, we're oblivious to what is going on in the schools in our country around us on a weekly basis, it seems to me.
And probably to that point, you or me are probably be like looking at that paper and like, wait a second, do you have a fucking gun? What is this? Like beyond like checking on like, help me, I want to help you, but like, why did you draw a gun? Where, like, do you have, like, if this is a case where we're, hypothetically we're talking about, you would ask that. You would say,
that would be your first question, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you have a gun somehow? Like what, but again, that conversation is taking place outside in the car in the parking lot of the school. As soon as you take your kid out, you know what I mean? It's like, that part of the equation never goes away from me, no matter what the underlying facts are, gun or no gun, knowledge of gun or no knowledge of gun. Like my kid cries for help like that, I'm pulling him, or her, either way, and I'm going to dig in and find out what's happening, and ultimately I'm saving lives by doing that, including my own child's life, theoretically, it's just
a question from Jolene here, who has been so generous today. She's been
so
a member
very generous
of your channel for a month, Bob. She says, as a therapist, I have a legal duty to assess my clients for suicidal ideation, including means to harm. Why don't the schools have to assess and ask if they have access to it? It's a great question, Ax. Why don't the schools have to assess and ask that?
And Jolene, that goes exactly to what we're saying. Like we don't live in a vacuum here. Like we can't pretend like school administrators and school employees that are dealing with the children hands-on are not aware of the world in which we live. And for that not to be like the first thing that they're asking in terms of getting some kind of huge red flag like this is obscene. Like there is a, that's like the civil liability suit against the schools getting dismissed is so, it's so depressing, because it's like, and again, but you're right. I mean, ultimately we're the ones paying for that. We're the ones, the taxpayers, are the ones paying for a lawsuit against any government entity, no matter what it is. Anytime cops are getting sued or police stations are getting sued for their cops making bad shootings and killing people, we're paying for that. Like when they settle those for $20 million, that's coming out of their budget. But you know where that money came from? From us, from the taxpayers. We fund all of it. So it's like it's a funnel that always leads back to us. And there's just a lot with this case, man. I mean, it's the Second Amendment type shit, it's the gun reform type shit, it's responsibility of parents, and where does that fall, and how much are we going to be held accountable for our kids' actions moving forward? And this trial has it all, man. Like in terms of like impact on our society. I was saying it during Jennifer's. It's like it's the most significant, impactful verdict that I can think of in a long time, and like the most kind of impactful event since like 9/11, when it just changed the way that we live permanently, like in terms of travel. Like TSA didn't exist pre 9/11. It wasn't a thing, man. Like show my ID and I walk onto a plane. It's like these kind of events change our lives, and really in a way that we're in a constant state of having to protect ourselves, which is unsettling.
So let me ask this about, if you're now crossing this witness, how are you going to kind of attack his, what are you going to try to get out of him to help your case?
Very little, I mean, it kind of is what it is. I mean, there's no factual dispute that Crumbly bought the gun. It's no factual dispute that he brought his son with him when he bought the gun. There's no factual dispute that he brought him to the range. There's no factual dispute. Right. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Like to get up there, like Allison would be insistent on asking a few questions, and I'd be like, I say we pass the witness. Like you're not making any headway with this guy. He's not the one. You know what I mean? Because he's after the fact. Everything relating to the charges in this case pertains to prior to and the day of. He's coming into play after the fact.
I will say she has been good with that. He has not crossed the two women who were like in the
right.
She did not cross them. She doesn't cross just a cross.
She's smart. Uh-oh, she's putting lip liner on, Jay. She's gonna catch some heat for that. Oh my God, you see her putting lip liner on in court? What the fuck? Oh my God.
This is a great view, by the way. Good camera work.
Ear hole. I
guess they only have one camera in there.
Q-tip, bro. Look at that. Fucking guy's wax is dripping out of his ear. He's got a big, thick neck there. Ooh.
There we go. Back
hey,
up camera.
Hey. Got a real tight shot on this guy's ear hole. You may want to break. Might want to bring it back a little bit there, buddy. Grandpa, I saw your head on TV.
Thank you.
Listen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Agent Brandon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to go back just a little bit and get just a little bit of background information. In November of 2021, you were employed by the ATF, and you also worked on was it a task force? Did I understand that correctly?
So at the time of the shooting, I wasn't on the task force yet. I was working on cases in Pontiac that which morphed led into the creation of that task force.
In connection with this case, you reviewed a significant amount of information and data in the investigations related to the Oxford High School shooting.
Yes.
And that would be specific to Mr. Crumbley, some specific to Mrs. Crumbley, and some specific to their son.
Yes.
On September 25th of 2021, you testified that that James and his son went to a gun range in Clarkston.
September 25th, yes.
That they rented a 9mm handgun, if you recall, and I can pull the exhibit up if you'd like.
No, that's correct.
Okay. That they purchased 2 boxes of 9mm ammunition.
I believe that's the correct quantity, yes.
If you recall, the price of those boxes was $29.99 each.
I don't recall, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Okay. That sounds about right for a box of 9mm ammunition.
Yes.
There was also 22 caliber ammunition that was purchased.
Yes.
They fired a 22 caliber pistol.
I believe the video we have, yes.
And that was the Caltech that's owned by James Crumbley.
I believe that is the firearm that's depicted, yes.
Okay. And you also learned that they also fired a 9mm pistol.
Yes.
Which is the one that they rented.
Correct.
That was the HK.
Yes.
In October 3rd of 2021, they went to the gun range again, they being James Crumbley and his son.
Yes.
They purchased 22 caliber ammunition.
I don't recall the exact receipt for that day, but that sounds correct for that day, yes.
And in October of 2021, to your knowledge, based on your knowledge of the investigation, there were 2 pistols in the home, and that was there were BB guns as well. I'm not referring to those.
Sure.
There were 2 pistols. There was the Derringer, which you've been shown, and the Kel-Tec.
Correct.
Okay. Those are both 22 caliber handguns.
Yes.
November 26th of 2021 is when the Sig Sauer 9mm was purchased.
Yes.
And that was done so by James Crumbley.
Yes.
And if you recall from the receipt, there was, it was a handwritten receipt.
Yes, the receipt was handwritten, yes.
And the receipt had the firearm listed,
Yes.
the serial number of the firearm,
Correct.
prices, and things of that nature.
Yep.
Okay. On November 27th of 2021, James Crumbley's wife, Jennifer, took their son to the gun range.
I'm sorry, what date was that again?
November 27th of 2021.
Correct.
So that was the day after the 9mm was purchased.
Yes.
They purchased 2 boxes of Patriot Defense 9mm ammunition.
Yes.
Based on your investigation, you learned that they fired 1 full box of ammunition, or at least you believe that that occurred.
That's correct.
You recall that each box was approximately $23.99.
Yes.
That they left with 1 box of 50 rounds of ammunition.
Correct.
I'm going to get back to, you compared the handgun on the math assignment and also the handgun in the home. I'm going to get back to that in just a minute, but I do want to talk about keeping a handgun safe in a home. You would agree that there are a variety of ways to keep a handgun safe in a home, and I'm going to give you some examples. One would be to store it in a safe.
I would say that's one way to, are you saying, when you said keeping a firearm safe, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. Well, just that. Keeping it safely stored, keeping it safe in the home.
Safe, I mean, I'm not trying to play a game. I'm just trying to, so you're saying like keeping it safe from access or from a person? Like I'm trying to understand.
Sure, safe from others, safe from accidents, safe from accidental discharge,
Sure.
safe from mishandling, safe from ...
Sure. That's one way I think you could keep a firearm securely stored inside of a home.
You can store it in a locking gun case. We saw that the cases that were on the table, they had holes where you could put a lock in them.
Yes, that's
That's
right.
another way.
Yes.
You could store it in the small safe. I guess there's a couple different styles of safes. There's the little safe that you showed us earlier, and then there's other bigger safes, correct?
Yeah, there's a variety of gun safes out there, yes.
You could use a cable lock.
Yes.
You could use a trigger lock, which goes in the trigger.
Yes.
You could store the firearm unloaded. Obviously, an unloaded firearm is not inherently dangerous, correct?
I don't want to speculate on whether that would be a safe way to secure a firearm because you don't know, I'm not whether knowing all the ins and outs of whether someone else has ammunition or magazines or things like that. I don't want to, I can't answer that question.
Sure. I guess my question is actually a lot more simple. I'm not asking you to speculate on anything.
Sure.
Simply having an unloaded firearm, is an unloaded firearm in itself dangerous? Or does it become dangerous when you put ammunition in it?
I would say that the answer to that question really depends on the proficiency with firearms of people in the home. If you have ammunition stored separately and it's just the firearm by itself, if someone clearly knows how to load a magazine and insert it, it's no longer stored safely secured, I would think.
My question is a little bit different though. It's not necessarily talking about, and we can get to the other stuff too. I'm not asking you to avoid that.
I'm really just trying to answer your question. I'm trying to understand what you're trying to ask.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to ask is an unloaded firearm in and of itself, no ammunition in it, no magazine in it, is that itself unsafe?
Again, I don't know what else, not knowing what else is in the home, I can't answer that question.
You would agree that keeping a handgun safe depends on a variety of circumstances. And you talked about some of those, not knowing if there's ammunition in the home, right?
Yes, are you talking now again about the same line of it being stored just by itself?
Correct.
I mean, yeah, there's so many factors that would go into whether that would be a secure way to store a firearm, yes.
Where it's stored could also be dependent upon the age of the people in the home.
I think that's one relevant factor, yes.
The people who live in the home, their knowledge of firearms. And I think you mentioned proficiency, like whether or not somebody could load a magazine.
Right. I think we're getting into an area that's kind of, I don't know how to answer that question. I'm just really trying my best here. I don't know how to answer that question. There's just too many variables.
There's a number of variables. That's kind of the point that I'm making. There's a number of variables that go into determining whether or not a firearm is stored safely. Is that fair?
Yes. There are a number of variables that come into play when you're considering how to store a firearm, yes.
One of the ways that we just discussed was a cable lock. Cable locks can be removed in more than one way, correct? It can be removed by using a key and unlocking the cable lock.
Yes, that's the way to unlock the cable lock, yes.
And I think that one of our witnesses previously also testified that you can also cut off a cable lock.
Yes, I'm aware that there are tools you can use to defeat the cable lock, yes.
As for the youth handgun safety pamphlet that the prosecutor showed you, you're aware of federal law, which that ATF handgun safety pamphlet is about federal law, correct?
Yes.
It's not about Michigan laws.
Correct. I believe it references state and local ordinances at one point, but generally speaking, yes, it references the federal law.
Okay. And you're aware that it is legal under federal law for a minor to possess a handgun in certain circumstances?
Yes, that's correct.
That includes going to a shooting range?
So we have to be careful about how we're using the words in that sentence. So there's five specified things in particular about what minors can do alone with firearms with written consent from their parents. It could be hunting, ranching, employment, target practice, and hunting, I believe. But there's specific things you have to do with as far as if they're doing it alone with written consent, the consent has to be on them. There's a variety of things in the actual statute itself. I can't recall all of them off my head, but if I'd have to have a little more information to know that was okay.
Sure. And we don't have any evidence, and we haven't looked at any evidence during your testimony, and you've been sitting in court for all the witnesses, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
There's been no evidence presented by Mr. Wagorowski or any other witness to show that Mr. Crumbley's son went to the range by himself.
No, not that I've discovered in this
Okay.
case, no.
So we're talking about going to a shooting range with a parent. That itself is not illegal under federal law.
No.
Learning firearm safety. A minor can handle a firearm while learning firearm safety. Again, assuming they're with a parent.
Right. There's only certain things that are covered by federal law that federal law even touches upon, and it's the transfer of a handgun to a minor. It's not even contemplating those scenarios you're discussing. So there is not a federal law that says a parent can't show their child firearm safety. No.
And during your involvement in this case, you found no evidence that James Crumbley was aware that his son had obtained unsupervised access to any of the firearms in his house.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. During your involvement in this case, you found no evidence that James Crumbley was aware that his son had obtained access to the firearms in his home.
I don't recall him ever having the videos of his son playing with the firearm or anything like that, just the fact that he was present during the time.
So he was in the home during those times, but you don't have evidence that James was aware that those activities were occurring. Is that fair? And I'm not trying to trick you.
No, I haven't. I understand your question. If I understand it correctly, you're saying that there's not evidence that, he sent a video to his dad saying I was playing with this gun or something to that effect. I never found anything like that, if that's what you're asking.
You've been involved in this case since November 30th of 2021. We heard your testimony about that. You were involved in the search of Mr. Crumbley's home?
Yes.
And that was on November 30th of 2021?
Yes.
And we talked about there were various BB guns found in the home. That's not illegal, correct?
I can't even comment on it. I don't know. I'm sure they are. I have no idea.
No idea. Okay.
I mean, under state law, I have no idea what's legal and not with BB guns.
There were also 2 pistols which were located in the gun safe, which you testified about previously.
Yes, that's correct.
That gun safe with those 2 handguns were located inside of a TV stand or a dresser of some sort?
It was like, I think it was a dresser that had a TV on it, and it was like had like a couple of drawers and a sliding thing in the middle. Yeah.
So it was located inside of that dresser in a cabinet?
Yes.
There was also an empty Sig Sauer gun case, which we've seen, found in James's bedroom,
That's correct.
along with an empty box of Patriot Defense 9mm ammunition,
Yes.
also found in James's bedroom.
Yes.
You learned that Mr. Crumbley purchased 3 handguns between June and November of 2021.
Yes.
We went over those purchases today.
Yes.
With each purchase, you know that Mr. Crumbley signed a trigger lock statement,
That's correct.
and you reviewed those as part of your involvement in the case.
I reviewed the documents from every purchase. Yeah.
Now, you also know that for an FFL dealer to be compliant with federal law, that they also have to provide the ATF use safety handgun notice
Correct.
with each purchase.
Yes.
So Mr. Crumbley purchasing 3 handguns between June and November, he would have received 3 of those pamphlets.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
So we've talked about one, the one that was found in the Sig Sauer case, but you don't know the location of the other 2.
I do not.
And there's no requirement in that pamphlet or anywhere that Mr. Crumbley display that notice anywhere in his home.
No.
Okay. Federally licensed firearms dealers provide the cable locks to each seller, and typically the cable lock comes with the firearm from the manufacturer. Is that fair?
Correct. With new firearms, that's generally the case. Yes.
Used firearms, the cable lock might come from somewhere else. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Either the store will have you buy one, or sometimes people throw it in for free. It all just depends. Yeah.
And I think Ms. Back testified that the cable lock that we have was from Sig Sauer, correct?
Correct.
Cable locks are not necessarily specific to each firearm. So it's not like a key in a lock, right, which is specific to that lock. Cable locks can be used on other firearms.
Yeah. Generally speaking, yes. They can be used on multiple makes and models of firearms. Yes.
So assuming that there isn't an issue with the caliber, a 22 caliber we've determined has a smaller bore, so it's more narrow than a 9mm, which has a wider bore.
Correct.
So a cable lock specific to a 9mm may not fit in a 22 caliber, but a 22 caliber cable lock may fit in a 9mm, if that makes sense.
It depends how you use it. I mean, if you were going to put it through the magazine well and not the actual barrel, there's different recommendations on how to use it. But if you were going to put it through the magazine well and lock it, it would fit both.
So that Sig Sauer cable lock isn't necessarily designed just for that Sig Sauer. A Kel-Tec cable lock could have been used on a Sig Sauer, correct?
Kel-Tec, to my knowledge, does not make cable locks. They provide trigger locks, but I get your point. Yes.
Yes.
A different model could work just as well.
Okay. There are also universal cable locks, which we've kind of talked about, which could work on any caliber handgun.
Correct. Semi-automatic handgun, yes.
Semi-automatic, thank you. Again, Mr. Crumbley, we know received 3 either cable locks or trigger locks in connection with the purchases of the handguns.
Correct. Based on the documentation we have, yes.
Right. You found 1 cable lock in the home.
That's correct.
The keys were still in the lock.
Yes.
You did not find the other 2.
No.
Or their keys.
Not to my knowledge, no.
You don't know where those other 2 cable locks are.
I believe there would have been a trigger lock with the Kel-Tec, but to your point, yes.
Okay. You don't know whether Mr. Crumbley had a cable lock on the SIG or not at the time that it was taken by his son. Based on your investigation.
His son. And based on statements made that we've heard in court and other things like that, I've never heard mention of a cable lock. I've always heard hidden.
Okay. You don't know though. Is that fair based on your investigation?
I know that one wasn't recovered at the school or in the house. Is it a certainty? No, I think it's highly improbable.
You said that one was recovered at the school?
I said one was not recovered at the school.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
So it would, yeah. I found no evidence that a cable lock was ever installed in that firearm.
The prosecutor was asking you about the difference between a 22 caliber round and a 9mm round. And there was something about the size of it. The bigger the round, the bigger the hole, things like that.
I don't know if I said that today, but I know it, yes.
Okay. There's no evidence that you've learned to show that James bought a gun because he wanted more damage. I think that's what you said, more damage.
More damage. Yeah, I don't think I found any evidence that James decided to purchase that firearm. If my understanding is right, based on things, is that the only person ever researched the purchase of the firearm was the shooter.
We also heard Ms. Back testify that and confirm that when Mr. Crumbley went and purchased the 9mm Sig Sauer, that he had made indications that he had been looking at it for a few days. Do you remember that testimony?
Yeah, I remember it was either a few days or quite some time. I'm not sure the phrasing, but I remember hearing that testimony, yes.
And we know that James Crumbley also has fired a 9mm prior to November 26th of 2021. I believe it was September or October of that year.
Yes, I recall he had at least fired it then and then maybe in July that year too.
We talked about Exhibit 167, which was the small safe.
Yes,
The combination on that was 000.
yes.
You have no knowledge if anyone other than James knew the combination of that safe?
I do not.
Specifically, you have no knowledge if his son knew the combination of that safe.
I do not know if he knew the combination was 000, no.
You don't know if James was aware if his son had the combination to that safe. Is that fair?
I have found no evidence that he provided the combination or his son knew the combination, but based on the fact that we recovered the firearms in the home in the safe and that we have videos of, at least there's the one video on, was it August 19th and August 20th, the two videos of Mr. Crumbly's son playing with the Kel-Tec. There's also a video, I forget the date, of the shooter playing with a Derringer inside the house at one point. So if they were in the safe, I don't know if his father was there or not. I can't answer that question for certain whether his son knew the code to that safe.
Okay. And you talked about August of 21. That was obviously before November 30th of 2021 when you recovered that safe from the cabinet.
Correct.
You testified with the prosecution that you were, I believe you used the word shocked to find the ATF youth handgun pamphlet in the 6 Hour gun case, right?
Yes.
Now, we just talked about the fact that there were at least, we believe at least, 2 other pamphlets that were provided to Mr. Crumbley.
Correct.
Because we know that because there were 2 other firearms in the home, and you have no reason to believe that those were not sold in compliance with federal law.
Correct.
You don't know when or how often Mr. Crumbley reviewed those pamphlets with his son
I do not.
prior to November of 2021?
No.
In fact, it would be an assumption that because it was in the 6 Hour case, that must mean that Mr. Crumbley wasn't reviewing those rules or following the rules with his son. Is that fair?
Can you either rephrase or repeat the question?
Yes. It would be an assumption about whether or not Mr. Crumbley reviewed those pamphlets with his son just because it was found in the 6 Hour case.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's why I said I was shocked that it was just kind of discarded to the back. Yes.
And we also established that there was no requirement that he post that pamphlet anywhere in his home.
Correct.
Prosecutor asked you about registering handguns. You don't know whether James mailed the pistol sales records, correct?
You mean mailing them in to? If they were mailed in process, they would have shown up in the registry. I've actually ran it between or either right before the first trial or this trial, and it still wasn't in there. So it'd be odd if all 3 got lost in the mail.
Even assuming that James didn't mail them or drop them off, the penalty is a civil infraction, correct?
Yes, I was only answering the question that they weren't registered.
It's a fine, correct?
I don't enforce that state law particularly. I generally deal with other parts of state law with firearms offenses. So I'll take your word for it.
Well, and I can show you the exhibit if you'd like. The pistol sales record actually lists the penalty at the top.
Sure.
You talked about Mr. Crumbley's son's stance while at the shooting ranges. And you said that it shows that there's some level of proficiency, that he has some level of proficiency with firearms. Do you remember saying that?
Yes, I believe I was talking about the surveillance video from the school, but yes.
Okay. You would agree that it's important for people in a home where there are firearms present to be familiar with them. And let me clarify that question a little bit.
Sure.
Obviously, if you have a 2-year-old in a home, you are not going to familiarize your 2-year-old with a firearm. Is that fair?
Sure.
Not intentionally.
Correct.
If you have a teenager in the home or other adults in the home, they should be familiar with the firearms if they're going to be in the home. Is that fair?
I think that's obviously a personal decision that it's not something covered by federal law that you're required to do that. I think some people may choose to not do that and just keep them away from their kids and out of view. But, like I said, that's not something I can speak to.
Prosecutor specifically asked you about Exhibit 169, which was the firearm purchase on June 15th of 2021, and that there was a delay. You testified that sometimes the background may take time. That's not a negative or positive. It's just a fact that sometimes they take time.
Correct.
You heard voices, if you recall, in exhibits 172 and 173 at the outdoor range, which was where the videos on Mr. Crumbley's cell phone of his son firing the Kel-Tec and the Derringer. Do you remember those videos?
Is that the June videos, June 20th?
Yes, June 20th, yes.
Yes.
And you recall that there were other voices. Do you recall hearing other voices?
I don't recall hearing them. I don't disbelieve you.
Do you recall hearing other firearms being fired? I don't know what they were, but you can hear other firearms being fired.
I don't recall after watching it right now. This time, I was focused on the shooter in this instance. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that other people may be shooting at a range as well.
Exhibit 175 is the Instagram post by James Crumbley's wife that both Mr. Crumbley and his son, quote, both got handguns.
That was the Instagram story?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And that was, that video is showing Mr. Crumbley's son firing the Kel-Tec,
Yes.
which was in the safe in his room, in the safe in Mr. Crumbley's room.
On November 30th, yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Exhibits 70 and 71 are the August 19th of 2021 video and text that we just talked about a few minutes ago. That is of the Kel-Tec, correct?
Yes, both the August 19th and 20th videos were of the Kel-Tec, yes.
So you would agree that these may have been the same night. The August 19th video was about approximately 9:30 p.m. and the second video was about 12:30 a.m. the following morning.
Correct, yeah, it was the same night into the following morning, yes.
Exhibit 70 and 71, you specifically can see that the Kel-Tec is unloaded.
In the 819 video?
Yes.
Yes,
That there's no round in the chamber and that the safety is not engaged.
correct.
Exhibits 72 and 73 are the August 20th of 21 videos. Your testimony was that Mr. Crumbley's son slammed the firearm down onto the magazine and released the slide forward.
Correct, yes.
You testified that the way that Mr. Crumbley's son was handling that firearm was not safe handling.
Correct.
You may have also testified about this, but I wanted to clarify. There was nothing in your investigation that showed that James was aware that his son had made that video.
No, again, just only what I testified to, that he was in the home at the time of the video, but no.
Exhibit 190 is the September 25th, 2021 gun range. There was some 9mm rental, some ammunition purchased, and then targets also purchased.
Yes.
There were silhouette targets and also non-silhouette targets purchased, if you recall.
I don't recall, but I take your word for it.
There were also range safety officers present.
JC, your boy
Yes, I think
Saquon went to the
standard,
birds.
that range in my experience.
My son just told me, "Oof, that's a tough one. That's a tough one."
It's a tough one. It's your
You described a little bit, discussed a little bit, watching Mr. Crumbley's son, and I don't know if you used the word misfire, but you indicated in your testimony that Mr. Crumbley's son was having an issue with the semi-automatic handgun.
Yes.
That he was struggling and was unable to clear something, correct?
Yeah, I think he thought a round was in the chamber and he thought he cleared it, but there was actually nothing in there, and that's when Mr. Crumbley picks up the magazine and inserts it and makes it operable again. Yes.
And obviously we know that Mr. Crumbley and his son went to the shooting range.
Yes.
And Mr. Crumbley's son handled the handguns. We watched it.
Correct, yes.
You would agree that it's important for a person who fires a firearm or a handgun to know how to properly clear a misfire.
I wouldn't say that it was a misfire. I would say that, what it appeared to me is that he was, being instructed by his father on how to properly deal with any malfunction of the firearm, which is when he racked the slide and then, inserted the magazine.
So same question, but worded a little bit different. It's important for somebody who handles a firearm or who fires a firearm to know how to deal with things that come up while you're firing it. Is that fair?
I would say that's a safe way to, if you're going to be shooting a firearm, that's correct.
And if somebody handling a firearm or shooting a firearm doesn't know how to properly do that, it can have potentially very dangerous consequences.
Yes.
Exhibit 95 is the social media post by Mr. Crumbley's son about the one where there's the multiple photos of the Sig Sauer. He talks about his new beauty, his 9mm, his Sig Sauer. That
I recall the post,
okay.
yeah.
There was no evidence other than those pictures. Well, let me say this, and I've asked this question before, you've heard it. Based on those photos, you don't know if Mr. Crumbley is standing right outside the frame of the photo, correct?
I do not know.
Okay. You've learned nothing during your investigation to show that Mr. Crumbley wasn't standing there with his son.
On the day he purchased the firearm, when he took those photos?
Yes, November 26th.
Correct.
There's no evidence that Mr. Crumbley gave his son that Sig Sauer and that he had it unsupervised. Is that fair? Other than on November 26th of 2021.
Yeah. Except for that date.
So I recall there being another video that Detective Wogrowski testified to that I've also observed. I believe that was later that night, showing the shooter in possession of that firearm, filming down the barrel of it. I don't recall any other videos or photos of that on the devices.
And along the same lines as I've asked previously, you learned nothing during your investigation that Mr. Crumbley was aware of that video, the one that you just described, later that night on November 26th of 2021.
Yeah, like again, the only thing I believe he was also present in the home for that one, but that's the only thing that I could find. Yes.
In fact, the Sig Sauer case was found in Mr. Crumbley and Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley's bedroom.
That's correct. It was on the bed it was open next to the box of Patriot Defense ammunition.
Exhibit 97 was a photo taken by, I believe, Jennifer Crumbley of the open Sig Sauer box with the Cal-Tac and the Sig Sauer in the case, correct?
Yes.
That has the ATF pamphlet and the cable lock.
Correct.
In looking at the Cal-Tac, there's no magazine in the Cal-Tac.
I don't believe so in that picture, no.
You testified about the Exhibit 42, which is the cable lock that was found at the Crumbley home. Your testimony was if it was used regularly, the bag would be damaged. That cable lock was provided 4 days before you found the cable lock in the home, correct?
Correct, yeah. But if you tried to take that in and out of there, the way that the cable lock expands in that bag, you could tear up the edges of it. So there would be more wear and tear on the bag.
Exhibit 95 is the receipt on November 27th of 2021 when Jennifer Crumbley and her son went to the shooting range.
Yes.
I think I've already discussed this. There was Patriot Defense 9mm ammunition purchased that day, 2 boxes.
Correct.
Based on your investigation and your involvement, that was the first time after that Sig Sauer was purchased that ammunition was purchased.
From records we've located, yes, that's correct.
If you recall, and if you don't know the answer to this, please tell me. You reviewed a lot. Did you also review any statements made to law enforcement or the interview from the substation of Mr. Crumbley?
Yes.
Okay. And if you recall, during that interview, James did not know how much ammunition was purchased that day, November 27th of 21.
I recall there being a conversation between him and his wife, and I believe he ends up correcting her, saying it was 50 rounds, but I don't recall the exact words he used.
Okay. They discussed the cost.
I believe so, yeah, because he was. I think she initially thought there was like 200 rounds, and I think he eventually informed her it was 50 rounds.
Okay. Exhibit 196 is the video of Mr. Crumbley's son and Mr. Crumbley's wife at the range. You can see when Mr. Crumbley's son is actually in the booth handling the handgun, the 9mm handgun, the Sig Sauer, that there's actually a range safety officer standing slightly behind him to the right, who's got like a bright yellow vest on, correct? Yes. And if you know, and I assume that you do know, the purpose of a range safety officer is to ensure that people are handling the firearms correctly.
Yeah, I would say it's in compliance with whatever the rules are for that specific range, yes.
So if that, we would assume, and if you don't want to assume that's okay, but if that range safety officer had seen Mr. Crumbley's son doing something incorrect or inappropriate, it would have been raised as an issue that day.
I would assume so. That's his job, so yes.
The empty box of ammunition that was discovered in the Crumbley home on November 30th of 2021 was Patriot Defense ammunition.
Yes.
And I think you testified earlier that there are 9mm ammunition is more expensive than 22 caliber ammunition, correct?
Generally speaking.
Okay. Yes. But within that, there are are varying levels of expensive for the 9mm ammunition, correct?
Correct.
And we know that there were 2 different prices on 2 different purchases of 9mm ammunition in 2021 by James Crumbley and by his wife Jennifer Crumbley.
Yes.
And obviously, if you're going to the shooting range, you need ammunition to shoot, correct?
Yes.
So it's not unheard of for somebody to buy rounds of ammunition at a shooting range.
No.
During your involvement in this case, you saw no information that James Crumbley was aware of the Instagram post by his son. Let me clarify, because I think there were a couple. The Instagram post where his son commented, it was Exhibit 100, about his, quote, new SIG.
I don't recall if he saw that one. I know he saw the social media post by his wife of the firearm, but I don't believe that there was evidence of the him viewing that specific post that I found.
You also talked, lastly, you talked about the similarities between the drawing of the handgun on the math that we've seen, the math assignment that we've seen is Exhibit 130, and also, and let me see if I can get back to it, and also the similarity to the handgun, the Sig Sauer handgun. Do you remember making that comparison?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Hey, person that's turning on the TV, guys.
Oh, yeah, there's a button on the back.
It's about, there we go. That's fine.
Can you see? Okay.
Yes.
So you talked about the similarities were the striations on the back of the slide,
Yes,
Correct.
that was one of them. Yes.
the location of the ejection port,
Yes.
the shape of the trigger guard,
Yes.
and for those reasons you believe that that was the same as the Sig Sauer handgun.
And also the shape of the floor plate of the magazine. When all those are combined, each one taken in isolation, not the case. But if you put them all together, then yes.
And you're obviously work for the ATF.
Yes.
You have some significant familiarity with handguns.
Yes.
This is the Sig Sauer handgun. It's Exhibit 86. This is the Smith & Wesson handgun. A photo that was sent to James Crumbley by his son prior to the purchase of the Sig Sauer handgun.
Correct.
There's striations on the back, correct?
Not on the front.
There's striations on the back.
There are striations on the back, but not the front of that firearm.
And that's the ejection port that we can see on the top. Well, the side facing us. Obviously, you can't see what's on the other side.
Correct. There's also a black line that's not, it's a two-tone firearm and there's a black line. There's vast differences between that one and the one that's drawn. There are some similarities like we discussed, but I said again, taken in isolation, it could be a different firearm, but when all put together, it appears to be the same firearm.
And you don't know if anyone who viewed that handgun on the math homework even made the connection between that and the Sig Sauer. Is that fair? Other than you. We know you did.
I found no evidence that they did. I know that if you buy a firearm, you generally know what it looks like, but no.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Briefly, Special Agent Brandon, Defense Counsel just asked you some questions about other cable locks being used or could have been used. Do you remember that?
Yes.
All right, and she asked you about the other 2 cable locks. Do we have any evidence there were 2 other cable locks ever given to James Crumbley?
No, there were 2 trigger lock forms that could have been trigger locks or cable locks. And honestly, the cable lock for the Derringer probably wouldn't even work because you have to have one small enough to fit through the actual firearm itself, which the SIG one would not.
All right, and you just testified that you believe a trigger lock was what was sold with the Caltech. Did you say that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Did you find any evidence of a trigger lock or another cable lock anywhere in the home?
No.
Anywhere in the school?
I didn't search the school, but I'm not aware that one was ever located.
Okay. She just asked you about the comments at the substation. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. What did James Crumbley say when he was asked where that weapon was?
I believe he said it was in the armoire, hidden in the armoire, and then he said the ammunition was underneath a pair of jeans.
Did he ever say locked?
No.
Was there anything that struck you about his mention of the SIG?
Yes, so when he mentions the 6 Sauer, he mispronounced Sauer as Sawyer, which if you purchased that firearm and it was for yourself, you'd be familiar with how to say 6 Sauer.
Okay. And
Your Honor, I would object to that response and ask for it to be stricken. He's making an assumption about what Mr. Crumbley knows.
I'll move on. Special Agent, last question. You mentioned earlier that you reviewed the cell phone data and web searches that were on the phone of James Crumbley.
Yes.
All right. And did you ever find any searches that he did relating to firearm safety or minors?
I did, there were searches related to that topic. It was after the shooting had occurred.
Okay, so December something, after the shooting occurred.
Yes, I don't recall the exact date, but it was after the shooting.
Anything before?
Regarding firearm safety, not that I recall.
Thank you. Nothing further. May this witness be excused, Your Honor?
Yes, you can step down in your excuse.
Thank you.
Will we have another witness?
What time is it? 4:17?
4:17. Doesn't sound like we're getting another one.
All right, so 9 o'clock tomorrow.
9 o'clock tomorrow, folks.
Woo-wee.
So tell you, ladies and gentlemen.
This lady lawyer is so aggressive. She's giving me a headache. Boss lady. I think that's just how she sounds.
Because news reports do not have to meet these standards. They can give you incorrect.
I think she's a damn good lawyer. I don't give a shit
I'm
what
just
she-
keeping this on just to see if she says anything about scheduling, but I don't think she's gonna.
Do not go on social media. Do not post. Do not do research. Do not discuss this case with anyone.
Thank you, Sarah,
And
for being a wonderful person and a mod. We love you.
All right. Have a great night. Stay healthy. 9 o'clock tomorrow we'll start.
All right, doesn't look like anything there.
All right, so tomorrow is got Tuesday, and
I think they're gonna rest tomorrow. I get the
I mean,
sense
it sounds like they're gonna have to, right? I mean,
if they think they're gonna be done by Wednesday. I mean, I don't know who the defense is calling, but
if anybody, probably just James.
yeah,
I mean, kind of the same shit that they did with Jennifer. I mean, they didn't put any witnesses on other than her, you know. Yeah, I think like what do we feel like we're missing for the state to prove their case at this point? Remember, and tomorrow, Diz, would you be a dear and get us the statute? Because Jay and I can go through that like on a break, just so you all know what they have to prove. It's always helpful. It's always helpful to know what the state has to prove because that's how courts work. They're actually having to prove each and every element of whatever crime they've been charged with. So, you know, and the statute out there, like I went through it pretty carefully on Jennifer's stream, and he's been charged with the same thing. So it's interesting. You know, and the state did a nice job there in terms of breaking it down, you know, for the jury in terms of how you reach this decision, you know, because like I said, with involuntary manslaughter, it's missing the element of intent. You know, that kind of like malice aforethought, you know, that you're intending on killing somebody. Like they clearly weren't intending on Ethan killing anybody, but was there blatant disregard of everything that was in their face? You know, can we say that was a direct and proximate cause of the kids losing their lives that day? And I think the answer is yes.
yes.
I anticipate he's going down. You know, the interesting thing for me coming into this was, you know, whether or not he would go to trial. You know, what was interesting from a lawyer's perspective was that she has not been sentenced yet. So if, say, for instance, his lawyer was like, all right, well, are you going to make a plea offer to us? You know, like we're asking for an offer, you know, that we can contemplate. And, you know, they haven't had sentencing for her yet because it's a huge range. You know, I mean, it is a massive range for her. She can go away for as long as 60 years, theoretically. I'm not 100% on whether or not I think somebody answered it. I think Dizzy may have answered it before as to whether or not the sentences can run on each count can run concurrent or consecutive. If they're consecutive, obviously, and they nail her with the max, I mean, she's looking at, it's basically a life sentence.
Yeah, that's a life sentence for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that she'll get that kind of time on it. I think she's going to get a substantial amount of time. I'm thinking anywhere like between like 8 and like 15 years is where I think that'll fall. But like from his attorney's perspective, you know, how do you, you know, because what happens if they came back and said, okay, well, our offer 60 years, he
Right.
pleads out, or they give him like our offer's 40 years, you know, they slice off 20, and you know, you're sitting there like, well, because I don't know what they're going to do in terms of sentencing with you know, Jennifer, and ultimately that's going to be up to the judge, you know, and that's very instructive. So it's scary to take a plea when you don't know what the judge is going to do, and it's the same judge, you know, on the sentencing on Jennifer, because I'm assuming they'll be identical. You know, I mean, I don't think that those sentences will be any different, presuming that he's going to be convicted, which I'd be very surprised if he's not. You know, so there's a lot of interplay here, kind of when this was moving forward. And I forgot how quickly this thing was coming, you know. And they really did. They pared it down like quite a bit from their first run against Jennifer. Granted, there was more stuff because they were really trying to, you know, show just how, you know, neglectful she was because she was wrapped up so much in her own shit, that she just wasn't paying any mind to Ethan at all. And it's just a different thing with him, especially because the relationship seemed to be different in terms of, again,
Right.
that communication between mom and son and dad and son. It seemed to me that there was a lot more communication. So I'm seeing some Delphi questions. So, like, they're just catching word. Yeah, I posted that on Twitter the minute it dropped. So yeah, got a huge date on that. Unfortunately, it will not be televised. That would have made my life so much easier, Jay. So
Yeah, I heard you talk about that. You might have to like talk about like you have to
there's
worry about like watching your kids. It's gonna be so long that like you know,
yeah.
like
Well, Allie's not going to come with me. I mean, she's going to have to stay back.
Right.
And then, you know, I'm going to have to figure out, like, I was just looking for Airbnbs. Like, I'm going to have to find an Airbnb probably in Lafayette or West Lafayette, which is like 10 or 15 minutes. I've got a buddy that lives in Carmel, but that's a long drive every morning. It's like 50 minutes. But it could save me a lot of money, you know, because I got to get out there in line every day, you know,
Right.
like at the crack. And yeah, so I saw a couple. The jury is being imported from Allen County, which is Gulls County. So they will bring them in once they get selected. So I'm assuming what will happen is that, like, typically what they do in a situation like that where they're importing a jury from another county is they'll go and pick it in Allen. And then once they have those 12 jurors, instead of bringing the entire pool of potential jurors down for voir dire, you know, they'll just go pick it up there. And then when they have the 12 plus the alternates, they'll then bring them down and put them up in a hotel, probably in Lafayette or West Lafayette. It's just a shame that thing's not being televised. It's such a explosive case. I mean, aside from like the underlying horrible tragedy of the case itself, just procedurally, it's been such a nightmare, but fascinating. It's like it's really, it's got every element of like the flaws in the legal system that you could ever want in terms of like kind of examining, you know, our current state of you know, legal affairs in this county. And it's just like, you know, when you've got a judge that's basically unfettered, you know, like she doesn't give a shit what she's doing. She doesn't give a shit that the Supreme Court came down and said, you know, keep a better docket. Like she's just not doing thing. Like it's almost spiteful in terms of the way that she, oh wait, IV push, Bob, there's a great 1-bedroom, like 2 blocks from Carroll County courtroom. Ooh, IV, that would be amazing. Please do send me that. That would like I was literally towards the end of that somewhat boring testimony, that cross
The only
examination. I was
the only thing
definitely
about it, Bob, though, is you have to they lower lotion into the room you're in. That's how you have to make sure they have a basket. They lower you the lotion. You have to make sure you stay lotioned up before each day before you go.
it puts the lotion in the basket.
Bob, check out that email. Just be careful, Bob.
Yeah, it puts the lotion. It unfuck me. It puts the lotion in the basket. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what else they could have, but like I was kind of saying, like on this case, it sounds like they're done with everything in terms of the front end stuff. Do we feel like we've had enough of James' neglectfulness to satisfy a jury?
I mean, I thought they did last week. So anything
Yeah.
additional they add, I don't think there's any much more. I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but I just don't think there's much more. But I guess we'll see what a jury, thinks.
Have they gotten the like I thought Dizzy was saying that they haven't put the math test into evidence yet.
They've certainly referred to it enough. I can't remember if they've actually put it into evidence, but I gotta
They
assume
have
so
to
by
put it
now.
into
They've showed it like so many times.
right, but like that's got to be into evidence.
How could it not? Right.
Right. I mean, dude, that's like the primary piece of evidence in the case. So it's like everything else can go fuck off. Like that thing is it. Todd. Yeah, I mean, everybody's filed, like the media's filed for cameras in the courtroom. The defense filed their motion. They wanted the thing televised or streamed. And Gull's telling everybody to go fuck themselves. I mean, she's just not doing it. So it's a shame. It's a shame. But I mean, it's a boon for me, and it's gonna be a boon for y'all because like I'll give you the straight dope, like and it'll be blow by blow. Like my right hand's gonna be very sore, Jay, because it's like you can't bring any kind of electronic.
You can't bring a laptop or anything. Oh
can't
my
bring shit in there, dude. Like she's like
Holy
running it like we're in the 1930s. You know what I mean? And it's like I've got really shitty handwriting, and when I'm trying to write quickly, it's like maybe I should take like a shorthand like online class to try to figure out a way. Let's see, Mama K, do you think that this trial date for Delphi shows any vision of trial this month? I don't know what are you asking, Mama K? Do they think do you think that this trial date for Delphi shows any vision of trial this month? I don't know. I don't understand the question, Mama K. Come again, like ask it because I want to be able to answer it. And then like I'm heading down Sunday because there's a big hearing on Monday for this, which to me is just completely pointless. But everyone's gonna want to know because it's like it's all the dirt. It's all the shit about the leak and, like all this shit that's been going like, Jay, like, I don't know how much you follow this Delphi thing, but dude, there's just no other case.
I saw the latest thing about all the YouTubers and
God.
I'm like, holy shit.
Like just today, like the Fig Solves guy just filed like some letter that he wrote to the judge saying that the defense is like trying to cast shade on him. It's like, and it's on the docket, and I'm like, what? I'm like, there's no way I'm tweeting this turd shit, man. Like this guy talking about a clickbait, like trying to just suck off the teat. I'm like, what? I'm like, this guy, like, he's been the guy who's like, oh yeah, I got all the sources. I got a sources in Judge Gold's clerk, and it's like now he's trying to backtrack it all, once they're trying to put him on blast. Because it's just been one of those cases where, much like it was and is with Koberger, where you just have like just this, massive amount of people on both sides of this thing, and everybody's racing to get, a scoop. And like in a case where you're not going to get any scoops because, they've had all the evidence on lock. You know what I'm saying? There is no scoop to get. That's why what I cover is I cover the pleadings and I don't speculate on shit. Like I'm never making a video about how I think, the evidence is going to shake out because I don't know what the evidence is. You know what I mean? It's not like when you're making videos, you're using actual trial footage and testimony, and it's like this is not like what's going on in that case is not that. It's everybody just speculating as to what they have or what they may have, or superimposing Rick Allen's face on the fucking bridge guy thing. And I'm like, it's so much, dude. I'm ready for that
new
thing
member,
to go
Bob.
trial. Oh,
All-
appreciate
all
that. Love
injustice.
that. Aw, family hug. Love that. It's so good. Thank you. All injustice sounds like my kind of people right there. All injustice. I love that.
And Carly's been a member with me for 4. Carly's awesome. I could listen to you two all day. Love this dual stream. Thank you so much, Carly. You're the best.
We do love
Bob,
Carly.
do you know how many
I love
dogs
it.
Carly has? Bob, you want to take a guess?
8.
More.
Shut the fuck up.
More.
Like in a kennel? Does she own a kennel?
No. Just in her house.
11.
More.
Shut up. Is she a dog lady?
She's a dog lady.
15. 15 dogs.
More.
No way. Big
19
dogs? 19. Man, her food bill for those dogs alone must be astronomical. Like my dog's a big guy. You guys have all seen Nanook. Like he's a big dude, like a 75, 76 pound guy. And like we buy the big giant bag of shit, which is like, I don't know, $100, and it's about a month. 2 big bowls, 2 cups per serving, breakfast, dinner. And that's a month, like 30 days. So that's 100 times 19.
She says it's a lot. We go through 100 pounds a week plus
raw. Oh my God. Yeah. That's a huge, right. $100 a week. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you're a dog lover and it sounds like, Carly, do you like rescue dogs like left and right? Carly Rook's radar has 19 dogs. That's amazing. That is amazing. Sounds like 19, Ned. You heard it right, buddy. 19. 1-9er. 1-9er. That is a shit ton of dogs. That is a lot of dogs. I mean, do you have like a palatial estate or some huge amount of land? Oh my God, the amount of dog shit that you have to pick up is just like, whew. Oh my God. I mean, my guy, like I got a guy who comes and picks up the dog poop. It's like I think it's Poobie Gone or something.
There's a person that drives around here that does that too.
Yeah, it's a very valuable service, because of course Scarlett was like, "Oh, I'll walk him every day. I'll pick up the poop."
They always say that.
Yeah, and she does neither of those things. So it's like, and Nanook's a digger because he's like he's half husky, and they're diggers. So he like does the kicking the foot thing like every time he goes to the bathroom. So like the area of our yard, which is we have a pretty decent sized yard, he is like destroyed. Like there's no grass left because he's kicked it all up. So I like try to keep him poo patrol. That's right, Tiff. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, Jay has teens like that. Sure. Sarah, I have teens.
My teens don't do shit. They said they would.
Well, you got to. I've got 4 kids, dude. I have more kids than Jay. They don't pick up shit. I can't even get them to do the dishes. Kidding me? It's like a constant battle. And when I say do the dishes, I mean load
take it out of the dishwasher, right? Yeah. Take it out or load it. Yep.
Like when I was a kid, I actually had to like fill up one side of the sink with soapy water, have the other side, the little smaller side, with the clear water for rinsing, or just have the water running and have to actually do the fucking dishes. Like these little spoiled bastards don't have to like Cameron, man. I'm like, don't you feel guilty when I'm in here, your dear old dad, doing your chore and like you're sitting in the same room while I'm doing it? Do you have I'm like, are you just in here sucking on the teat of the family without giving anything back? And it's like I said, when you need money, I send you money. Like they won't even bring the garbage cans out, Jay, to like for garbage day. I got a braille, like it's me, old man Mata out there, like in my underwear racing out there at 7 in the morning because I forgot to bring them out, and I can hear them in the on the street over. I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot to put the cans out. I'm literally running down in my underwear, like dragging the recycling can and the big like garbage can. Oh, dude, it's so
people don't talk about that. When you get an adult, when you become an adult, like if you miss the cans and you have like 2 big things of cans, then you gotta wait 2 weeks because the
2
papers
weeks.
You're fucked. You can't.
It's catastrophic.
It's a big deal.
It is catastrophic. It's like we make so much garbage, dude. Like the can, which is a huge can, is filled if we miss a week. And I'm like, there's garbage bags in front of the can because I can't cram any more shit. And same with the recycling thing, you know. I mean, like I cram all that shit, which at least 90% of it's not actually recycled, but I like to think that it's going to be, even though they don't really recycle it, is what I'm hearing, the word on the street. But it's like, man, yeah, you know, and it's like, dude, kids these days. And despite all that, in spite of all my bitching about my kids, I always want to know what's going on in their lives. You know what I mean? It's like,
I hear you.
Yeah, dude. Well, this has been a blast. You know,
yeah,
I love
guys.
you
So
much.
we'll be back tomorrow at 9 for a full. We'll see how long. And I set up a portal, Bob. I don't know if you know this because I checked to see if anyone. Steve doesn't have everything set up yet, but tomorrow, Joe Jackalone is having both of our. First of all, Joe is. You guys should be subscribed to Joe Jackalone.
Yes.
You know who he's having on, Bob? Sunny Slaughter tomorrow.
So I got girl, man.
She's awesome. They're both awesome. That's gonna
She's
be
amazing.
Great. I think it's tomorrow at 6 or 7. So on my stream, I can't set up the portal on Bob's, but on mine, if you go over there, just like it, get in the algorithm.
I'll set it up as well. I'll set it up.
All right, I'll wait. Let me know when you have it set up, and I'll.
Because that so I should be able to do it, right? Even though
you should be able to do it from in your studio.
I think when I don't see the live because we're doing the duel until when you set it up, I should be able. It'll pop up on my YouTube as well. I think.
No,
whatever. Stevie, I don't know. I might.
So right now, if you know how you normally do it, like in your studio, you could do that right now if you want to. If you go into your YouTube, you should see a live. If you go into your lives, you know what I mean.
Okay, and so it'll automatically know the next time my next live ends, it'll portal.
No, I'm saying for this one. I'm saying for this one right now.
Oh, tonight, Sonny's on.
You could do it for tomorrow if you want. If you want to wait till tomorrow, you could do that. I'm setting it up today because I don't have anyone else to portal it to. So I'm just saying, like, if you guys want to just like it and get it in there.
Oh yeah,
you could do that tomorrow. You could set that up.
No, I'll do it now. So
go to your studio.
Will that portal? When will that portal them? Like when it goes
when we end today.
Right? Oh.
When we end today.
But will it bring them back to us when we start our live tomorrow?
No, someone else would have to. We won't have anyone portal to us.
Okay. No, I'm saying when we start the live
tomorrow.
Yeah, because he's having Sonny on tomorrow night at 6, right?
So in other words, we could wait till tomorrow till we do this. I'm just doing it to get some likes in the algorithm.
Oh, defense attorney Mao has not heard my old man voice? Wow. Come on, dude. Defense attorney, I'm like, that's my old man voice is legendary.
You guys have to watch. I got to share the stream of Bob and Karen doing their voices. If you haven't seen that, guys, you guys got to watch that.
Yeah, I crush the old man voice. It's good, clean fun. It's good, clean fun. All right. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll portal Joe right now. Doing that. And then we love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging with us today.
Thank you.
Jay, as always, I love hanging with you, brother.
I love it too, man. A lot of comments saying they love us just bullshitting, and that's like one of my favorite things to do is just have Bob on and bullshit.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's because we're fucking brothers from another mother, man. We could go all day, bro. You know, talk about anything.
Exactly.
I mean, you want us to talk about
Love is Blind?
We got you.
We got you.
We got
Blind,
you,
Oscars,
anything, movies,
recycling,
TV shows, all of it. We got every category that you could ever want covered. So that's why you hang with us, and that's why we love y'all that you choose to do that, because there's so much content out there. We love that you guys decide to hang with us, and we hope that we make it enjoyable for you.
Yeah, and I think we did it live, but thank you everyone who gave all the stickers and I think we got them all live when they were given. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. Thanks, everybody.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.